There's a lot of airspace to cover for Milroe. Still looking. Firing. Near corner. It's caught! Touchdown, Alabama! Isaiah Bond!
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Play action for Ward. He pumps. He throws open in the corner of the end zone. Touchdown, Washington State. Donovan Ollie.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Spencer Rattler wants to launch a deep one, and it is caught! Juice Wells all the way, touchdown Gamecocks! 72 yards!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Sanders looking wide open, touchdown, Dylan Edwards.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Here's Sanders on first down. He's got a lane. He's down the sideline. Turning on the Jets. Rocket Sanders. Shaking off tacklers. Rumbling inside the 30. And just like that, the Razorback crowd back in. 46 yards.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
DJ's going to airlift it. He airlifts it long, and it is caught at midfield. Bolden with the big catch. Nice. Over the back shoulder. It's good for 40.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome into 365 Sports. Smokey, as you know, if you watched yesterday, off today for Academic All-Stars banquet prep, and then we're off the rest of the week as we are going to do our spring cleaning here in the studio. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, Matt Fortuna, now of the Inside Zone, a new college football community, co-host of The Independent, contributes to Stadium, was with The Athletic and ESPN in the past. He's going to join us in just a second to talk about his new venture. We'll talk a lot about what's going on in the ACC with the meetings right now. And Matt, right off the bat, ready to go, joins us now. Matt Fortuna. Matt, congratulations. I just signed up, like, as we were playing the open of the show, for the Inside Zone. You are one of our favorite college football writers, and congratulations on the new venture.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for subscribing. And yeah, it's been a blast. It's definitely different. And I'm grateful for all the time I had at the quote unquote, legacy mainstream media at ESPN and The Athletic, but it's been very exciting going at it at my own. Yeah,
absolutely. So, Matt, let's jump right into kind of what's going on this week in college football, which, I guess thankfully for us in the media, never a dull moment, although it would be nice for a dull moment. House versus NCAA looks like it's going to get hopefully settled, because then that moves on to the next thing. So with this should come what I think is maybe the NCAA's, trip to the moon moment, where they are forced into figuring out things that are new because they have to. Do you think this is overall good news for college sports that this lawsuit will get settled?
I think so. I think it's, obviously it's a bill past due, right? I mean, we've gone through this situation, I feel like, for over a decade now, where it's one lawsuit after another. We've seen the NCAA stub its toe time and time again. They were steadfast in their refusal to acknowledge that amateurism was, let's face it, a sham, at least in the eyes of the courts. And look, it was $1 billion business that didn't pay its labor and didn't pay taxes. So, what's the old saying? Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, I believe. I mean, it's not boding too well for the NCAA right now. And when you look at the kind of overcompensation on the other side of things, where we have essentially year-round free agency in college football, right? We have players entering the portal, committing to one school, then leaving before they even play a game for that school for another school. I know the phrase "Wild Wild West" gets thrown out there a lot, but that is what it is right now. And I hate the word guardrails, but there needs to be some kind of declaration here, right? Whether that's employer-employee, whether that's some special antitrust exemption for student athletes, players, where they have obligations to their schools and to whomever they're working for. It's definitely a strange time right now. I don't think anyone has a direct answer right now. But again, I think if you looked into the crystal ball a few years ago, if you didn't have your blinders on, if you weren't the NCAA, you could have seen a day like this coming, and they're just completely unprepared for it.
Yeah, and even with this settlement, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a knife wound, really. Like, it stops some of the bleeding, but it doesn't prevent it entirely. It doesn't prevent it from opening back up again because of just some of the loopholes in this agreement and the legal challenges that could still be there, Matt. So it's obviously a time, like you said, that's very interesting with these various lawsuits. There's the constant talk about, separation, which one could argue it's already happened just financially. There's already a Super 2 money-wise. But when you talk to folks around college athletics right now, what is kind of the overwhelming sentiment of where people think we're heading and where everybody is kind of at the table? Or is this a situation where there's a lot of people scared they're not going to be at tables they're accustomed to here moving forward? Which is kind of the overall sentiment you get around the athletic ranks?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of anxiety, right? I wouldn't go so far as to say everyone's unhappy, but everyone's definitely concerned. I mean, you have the Big Ten, SEC, which feel like they're doing all the heavy lifting. They make the most money. Why do they got to share this with everyone else? And they're looking to, pad their coffers, so to speak, and make sure that they're in financial shape to pay the settlement, these back payments. You have the ACC and the Big 12, the other power conferences that are not happy with the revenue gaps in TV money from the Big Ten, SEC, and everyone else, and with the way the Big Ten and the SEC are essentially holding them hostage with the new college football playoff format. And then you, of course, you have the group of five, which it was always playing from behind and does at least have a way to play its way into the field and potentially a championship, as unlikely as that sounds. But they're worried about, the financial gaps being what it is. That there's talk, at least among some group of five schools, of do we start our own playoff? It's a very chaotic time in college football right now. And I'm not sure anyone has a clear answer. I do wonder when you look into the future, when you look into 12 team or more playoff fields, I think strength of schedule is going to be valued even more than it has in the past. And I do wonder if you're a Power 4 school, at what point do you stop scheduling group of five programs? I think there are group of five programs that have some anxiety about that. Are they going to be completely boxed out from that standpoint? Not unlike March Madness in some cases, right? I mean, we see mid-majors kind of get the short end of the stick when it comes to Selection Sunday, and there's really no recourse for them to play their way into the field because no one good or no one who can afford to play them wants to play them.
Matt, the ACC is meeting now in Amelia Island at the Ritz-Carlton, which is lovely. I'm sure they're having a great time.
It is. I've been there.
It's lovely. Although, and they keep saying all the things that they should say about, it's not weird, the Florida State and Clemson, and now North Carolina has got factions that are popping up that are sound almost like they took Florida State's board meeting from a year ago and just did a search and replace for North Carolina. How can they proceed knowing that you've got two now very loud members of your conference that are leaving? That's what they're going to do. They're going to leave. They're not going to stay. They're not doing this because they want to renegotiate and reform the ACC. They're leaving. How do they really navigate this?
It's a weird time because it's not like the Big Ten and the SEC are banging down the doors in Tallahassee or Death Valley right now trying to add these two schools. Now, if and when they do become free agents, I suppose that is definitely a possibility. But it's not like there's an exit plan, so to speak. It's just, let's get out of this deal and see what happens. And I don't know what the next steps are. It certainly seems like you can't put that toothpaste back in the bottle, so to speak. I imagine these lawsuits will eventually be settled. They'll come up with a number. It's just hard to see a situation where all these schools all these athletic directors and presidents are in league meetings together behind closed doors singing Kumbaya ever again, right? It's hard to see that, especially with, as you mentioned, the chaos in North Carolina that came out this week. And reading the tea leaves throughout the course of the last couple months, it certainly seemed like there was some disconnect there as far as how they feel privately versus how they feel they should approach this thing publicly. And I think seeing Clemson follow Florida State's lawsuit in steps is kind of the trigger where they're looking at this thinking to themselves, what are we doing? What should we be doing? Because to be honest with you, I would venture to guess that North Carolina is the most desired property from a brand standpoint among the ACC schools, not including Notre Dame. If they were all free agents tomorrow, I think North Carolina, it's in the biggest state or market that is not in Big Ten or SEC territory right now. And I think culturally they could fit in with either conference. And that's a blue blood brand. That's a brand that has its own color, Carolina blue. I mean, I think both conferences would be very intrigued by adding North Carolina. And let's face it, they wouldn't feel any pushback from South Carolina or from Florida the way the SEC would, because they already have, footholds in those states. So Carolina is going to be very interesting to follow here. Bubba Cunningham's one of the most widely respected athletic directors in the country. Obviously not the best of weeks from him, just based on the discourse coming out of Chapel Hill with some of those trustees. It didn't sound like he said a whole lot publicly coming out of Amelia Island. Jim Phillips, ACC commissioner, from what I read from the reports down there, kind of punched on the issue and said, like, that's a campus issue. They need to resolve that themselves. But it certainly feels like this is the first next step of, okay, we're not happy. What are we going to do about it? We've already seen two other schools in our conference take the legal route. Are we going to do that next?
Matt, you brought up the Irish, and they're always an interesting chess piece in all the realignment, speculation or reporting or whatever it may be at the time. There's a lot of folks that believe eventually they're going to get squeezed into having to make a choice about joining a conference. There are plenty of Irish folks and non-Notre Dame people that say, yeah, okay, we'll see. We don't believe that'll ever happen. What do you think about Notre Dame, just based on the information that you have? And obviously nothing imminent. They just signed a new TV deal. But do you think that Notre Dame, even with the brand that they are, could one day be forced into a situation where they can't enjoy their independence any longer?
I don't see it unless there's a total break off and we're talking about a completely different college football ecosystem, so to speak. They're in great shape right now. They just signed that new NBC deal. They've got money coming in from the ACC for all their Olympic sports. From everything I've gathered out of South Bend, they're now making more in TV revenue than SEC schools are, and they're just behind the Big Ten. They are in great financial shape. And as long as they have a carve out in the new playoff, which they do at least for the 12-team system the next 2 years, they're in great shape. They're in better shape now than they were before. I know they made the 14 playoff twice, but they had to go undefeated more often than not to get into that final field of four. We've seen 11-1 Notre Dame teams get left out. In this case, where you just got to be a top 12 team and you look at the talent on that roster, that's a team that should be a playoff team every year. And the more opportunities you get at that championship level, the more likely it is you one day come home with that prize trophy of a national championship. So they're in really, really good shape right now. I don't see anything changing again unless the SEC and Big Ten completely break off and basically cherry pick whoever they want to join their super alliance, super league, whatever you want to call it.
All right. Now that we're in the first year of these super bloated mega conferences, in the first year of the 12-team playoff, which kind of had to coincide together. I don't know if you could have reasonably had all these teams in these conferences and kept it at 4 and done so with a straight face, right? You couldn't have really done it. How do you think the perception will change and as what's determined as a good season for coaches and teams? If you're expected to go 11-1, but in a normal year, but you go 9-3 because the schedule's tougher, as long as you're in contention for the playoff, should fans be happy with that?
It's going to be interesting, right? If you're in the SEC and this now 18-team Big Ten and you go 9-3, you're probably going to argue that you're a playoff team over, say, a 10-2 or 11-1 team from a weaker perceived weaker conference. I think it's going to, in many ways, I think it's going to engage the entire nation in the playoff race in late November in a way it probably hasn't, because you usually have a list of teams that are playing for something as far as championship aspirations late in the season. I think it will add a whole new level of intrigue to conference championships, particularly in the Big Ten. Now that it's 1 versus 2 and it's not East-West, which the West never won. Even if that means we get an Ohio State-Michigan rematch. I mean, that's must-see TV. That's a playoff bid on the line. The American Athletic Conference announced today that their championship game is going to be on a Friday night of championship weekend. Well, it's not only going to be in primetime, there's probably going to be a playoff bid on the line, because the highest-ranked group of 5 team is going to automatically qualify for the playoff. And I think more often than not, that will probably be a team from the AAC. So I think we're going to look at things and success and failures differently, right? I mean, you look at a program like Penn State, can't get past Michigan and Ohio State in recent years. However, 10-2 in the Big Ten in each of the last 2 years, you're probably a top 12 team. You're probably in the playoff, and you get a chance to make a run at a championship, as unlikely as that is. I look at a team like, say, NC State, which has been right on that 1B tier of ACC teams the last couple of years. Really good roster, really good coaches. They're putting high round players in the draft every year. They just haven't broken that glass ceiling of playing for an ACC championship. Well, now you do that, you're in the playoff. And can you imagine how much recruiting momentum a program like NC State could get out of saying we were in the playoff? I think it's going to be a lot like March Madness, when mid-major schools make March Madness or win their conference tournaments. It's making the dance that is the big celebration. And I think we're going to see that become more commonplace throughout the country.
So we've got a lot of kickoff times getting announced. It's interesting to see the Big Ten logo with CBS. It's strange to see that, but we're going to have to get used to that. We've got the video game coming out. There's a lot of news about that as well. As far as the on-the-field product and some of the stuff to get excited for, I know you've also got some stories. You've been talking to folks. You had Manny Diaz, a Q&A from a couple weeks back, and I ask all this to say, of all that kind of fun stuff that's not legalese or drama, what are you enjoying most right now about the build-up the next season?
This sounds really cheesy, but the kickoff times, as micro as that is for us in the media, figuring out what time everything, it just seeing those graphics, seeing College Game Day with the video promoting Texas A&M, Notre Dame week 1, that really gets me excited and reminds me just how close we are to the start of the season, especially with another Ireland game in week 0 with Georgia Tech and Florida State. There's a lot to be excited about right now. I think everyone's excited for the transfer portal to die down a little bit, as much as that can be. But even seeing reporters down at ACC spring meetings from afar, and knowing that the Big Ten's having theirs next week and the SEC will have theirs a couple weeks after that, talking about actual football and about meaningful things as it relates to this coming season is definitely very exciting. A lot more exciting than the tampering accusations we got to deal with in February, or position battles for backup quarterback at spring practice, knowing that whoever loses is going to transfer a week later. The closer we get to the season, the more sunshine I can see from my window right here in beautiful Chicago. That shows me the season's getting closer, and I get really excited about that.
I want to ask you about Dabo Swinney. He had an interview yesterday where he again kind of doubled down on not using the portal, and I just hear Jason Bateman in dodgeball in my head all the time. It's pretty interesting strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for him. And he did say this was his quote. And honestly, every player is technically a transfer. We just signed a whole lot of guys that transferred from high school. We like our guys. We like our starters. Look, he's a great coach. He's fantastic. Developmentally, there's not many better than him, of getting guys from high school to being effective true freshmen to all that. Is he missing the boat on this is not about necessarily getting stars. It's about getting depth that is better if it's a guy who played, say at James Madison and was their starting guard, as opposed to a guy who's a true freshman who can bridge the gap for you, because everyone else is doing it except the service academies and him, and the service academies aren't allowed to.
It's, with some of these quotes, you almost wonder if he's in on a bit, right? He's trolling us, right? It seems like he comes up with a new way of excusing this, so to speak, every time. And look, no one's made me and everyone in the media and elsewhere look dumber than Dabo Swinney over the years, because what he's done at Clemson, his overall body of work is second to none among active coaches right now. That said, there's been a dip there the last couple of years, right? They've gone from competing for national championships to simply competing for ACC championships. And I think, that's by no means a broken program. I know the word culture gets thrown around a lot and it can be very generic and overused. I do believe the Clemson culture, and Dabo believes the Clemson culture is real. And if you've ever been around that program or in that building, it is different. And it's easy to see how these guys have had the kind of success they've had. But they also had that success when they had all, at least from a national title standpoint, when they had generational quarterbacks and Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence, and they haven't had that recently. Now, they've recruited to it, at least on paper, with 5 stars like Cade Klubnik and DJ Uyunglele, but that hasn't been there. The receiver talent has not been there. And the difference you're seeing right now, I think, between a Clemson and a program like Georgia that legitimately is competing for a national championship every year is that you can recruit over your recruit. You can transfer portal your way out of your recruiting mistakes and misses, if that makes sense. If Georgia misses on a position out of high school, they can go get a guy from the portal and they're okay there. Clemson has not taken that approach. And they weren't recruiting at a Georgia, Alabama level to begin with. They were right behind them and they developed and retained better than everyone, but they were not recruiting as well. So I think those misses out of high school, particularly at quarterback, get magnified. And you're seeing that on the field right now. Again, this is a good program that, even after losing last year at NC State and coming out and upsetting Notre Dame at home, Dabo Swinney comes out there and again, he throws out a cheesy one-liner about let's buy stock in Clemson now. And we all laughed at it, but they went on a run and they didn't lose a game after that. And again, I think there's something special and unique about that program where people aren't checking out the minute they're disqualified from playing for a national championship, but they need talent and bodies to get back to that level. And the best way to do that, maybe the only way to do it right now, is through the transfer portal. And I think it's maddening right now, if you're a Clemson fan or follower, knowing what this program is capable of and seeing them kind of refuse to dip their toes in that water right now.
Yeah, Tyler from Spartanburg maybe didn't go about it the right way, but eventually, that becomes the overall sentiment, and you get tired of your legendary coach. Things change in a hurry, Matt. Congratulations on the site. Look, we know we work for a company that's independent. There is a freedom in it, right? To where you're driving your own ship. I know there's some terrifying things about it too, but that's what it is when you're the captain of your own ship. So do you feel a little liberated in that?
Oh, certainly. I feel like I'm working more than I ever have before, but I'm also happier than I've ever been before, if that makes sense, because I'm in control, and that's a very special, unique feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got also, I saw that you have Bob Kravitz has a page with you guys, all of that signed up. So there's some really cool stuff. I put the link in the chat room, InsideZoneMF.com, which is for Matt Fortuna and not anything else, in case you're wondering.
Marcus Freeman.
Yeah, Marcus Freeman. There you go. But Matt, thank you so much for hopping on the show. Good luck, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks. Anytime.
All right. There you go. Matt Fortuna, Inside Zone. And that was right off the bat. But hi, Craig.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good. It's kind of a wild day when it comes to college football news, because there's all these settlement news and things we'll get to in a second that has tiers to it. I want to talk about the ACC, but that was interesting to hear from him right off the bat. And we're kind of in the same boat as him. We're on our own. We don't have a large corporate overlord, unless you consider 3 dudes to be a large corporate overlord.
We're pretty DIY.
Yeah.
I think in comparison to a lot of others that do similar things. So yeah, definitely have that bond with him, and there's a lot of other folks that are that way as well. Probably the majority, honestly, in the college YouTube podcasting space. I think there's, or as many of us at least, that are DIY independent as opposed to being under somebody else's umbrella. So yeah, I always appreciate people that are going down that same path, and hopefully he can enjoy it as much as we have been able to. I know we certainly don't pine for the alternative that when faced with before and after, I think we're pretty happy with the after and how it's all worked out. So hopefully he gets that same sense of satisfaction as well. But a lot to unpack there. I don't necessarily celebrate today and the settlement talks that continue on the way that it's being portrayed. I don't think this is a long-term solution, but I also get tired of talking about the legal stuff 9 times out of 10. So if that can make it to where we're talking about it 7 times out of 10, then that would be great because at least it would be a little bit of a reduction and we could get at least one portion of a big filled plate of obstacles. Like we can unload that and move it onto the dishwasher, but there's still a stack of plates that are awaiting the NCAA, a stack of dirty plates that they're going to have to clean up. And so this would be a significant one, but it's not the end-all, be-all. It doesn't answer everything, and it doesn't prevent more and more legal plates from stacking up. So it's a little bit of good, a little bit of I don't know, bad, but it's not more and more and more bad news, and so that's a good thing. I take that as a good thing. If you can settle some of this and clear out some of the stuff on your to-do list and then the major priorities like back pay to student athletes that's in the billions of dollars, then that's a great thing. But there's just some unanswered questions about the whole agreement to begin with that are not answered, nor will they be answered, I don't think, anytime soon.
On the triple option, I use this analogy, and I kind of alluded to it with Matt there. Craig, I think about Kennedy, when he said, we don't go to the moon because we could, it's because we should. We should go to the moon, right? And so with that initiative of NASA to put a man on the moon, there were all these things that came out of it because they had to figure out how to get a man on the moon and get him back without him dying. And that to be something that we could do. But it also forced them to invent a lot of things that we use today in just our common lives that, microwaves and different ways of doing things and the way computers have to move a little bit faster. Like it forced them into thinking about, it got the smartest people in the world in a room and they said, how can we do this, right? How can we make this happen? Are we going to go live on the moon? Probably not. But now we're going to learn things. And then billion-dollar industries came out of our trip to the moon. It was like a boon for the U.S. economy, just like the NCAA is now forced into a situation where they have to figure out how to get to a man to the moon and back without killing him, right? They have to make this work. So even though the situation around it is all negative, and they have to do it before Russia, right? They have to do it before more bad stuff comes along that they can't get out of the way from. They need to approach it that way. I'm just not as optimistic in the NCAA as I am 1961 NASA.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody's really that optimistic, and it's just one of those things that's going to continue to play out in courtrooms, which I have certain days where that's more interesting to me than not. There's some days where that's super interesting. There's some days where I'm just like, again, with the courtroom stuff, and so there's no avoiding it. I mean, this is what this is the bed they made for themselves, as we've well documented, and so is everybody else talking about these types of stories. But yeah, there's a ton of other stuff going on, as we touched on with Matt Fortuna. It's far more than just the legalese stuff. But yeah, there's a lot to unpack, and so we'll do that throughout this show today.
When we come back, we'll talk about the awkward situation at the ACC meetings in Amelia Island right now, and something that Dave Clawson said that I found very interesting, that is something they have to deal with regardless of what happens with Clemson and Florida State. Also, some news with some transfers. Cormani McClain has a new home. People are not surprised, but using a tactic that we saw used in Lubbock. He is not a scholarship player where he is, at least not right now, and that's how the world has changed somewhat. When we come back, we'll talk about all that. This is 365 Sports.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back. 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak today. Smokey off today, and then we are off for the rest of the week. And we will see you again on Monday. Just going to keep repeating that so you're not shocked when we're not here tomorrow. And because we've got a guy coming in to do some technical work for us and help us out over the next couple days so we can continue to improve our product. But let's get into kind of the news of the day. First off, Garrett, let's pull up Ross Dellinger to kind of put the finer points of the details of the settlement and what is going around. League presidents yesterday got documents on what the House settlement terms are at this time, which is $2.776 billion, the $21 million athlete revenue share projections per year, and a new enforcement arm to police collectives, and looming bankruptcy if a settlement fizzles. Because if a settlement fizzles, it's not $2.7 billion, it's about $20 billion if they lose the case in court, which they need that to happen because $20 billion, that's a lot of Skrilla. That's a lot of scratch right there. So that is kind of the details of that, how that revenue share, like all the things in it, Craig. Like you said, this is putting out the first fire of many fires, and then there's other fires within this that they have to put out. The most complicated of which I believe is the athlete revenue share projections and how you make that work. That, we heard it from Mac yesterday, that's the most confusing part.
Yeah, like I said, there's some things that are answered here and a lot of others that aren't necessarily answered here, so more law stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we've been talking about, and it's presented a certain way by Ross in some regards, as though it's going to, be the thing that kicks this across the line, and that it's already, pretty much over the line is going to happen, and it's going to answer various questions for at least the time being. But as it's, I think, also documented, or perhaps it's another article I read, this is going to be still a year-by-year, basis type of a thing. And it seems on the surface, at least, to answer a lot of questions. I know also, if you go check the mentions, that there's numerous lawyers that are like, how does that work exactly? And how is that legal? And how could that possibly stand beyond like a couple years? And so, I mean, just digest it however you choose to. I look at it as cleaning up some of the mess, and that's great. Less mess to talk about, the better. But I also know that it's not cleaning up the entire mess. So if it's progress, that's great. So let's see it become official and see what that looks like, and then I think go from there. But there are some compelling elements to this as far as the structure of it and how it would all work and the payouts and everything. And certainly I don't think everybody's going to be able to swallow 10 to 20, if not 20-something million dollars per year in extra cost, or I guess there's ways that comes from your revenue. And so the schools are definitely going to be making less money in some regards. That we do know, because it's going to be going to the athletes more so than ever before, even though it already has been trending in that direction, just in a more official capacity. So, yeah, I mean, it's chugging along. We've heard the scuttlebutt about it being close now for a few days, and so I assume that, faced with yet another, like every 2 weeks, this is what I think is driving me crazy. Every 2 weeks, it's not only like a new legal thing, which is fine because some of that is interesting. Like the ACC stuff, I do find it interesting, although I think that's, kind of depends on where you hear it from or what accurate of a story you're getting. But not only is it that there's a new legal thing every couple weeks, it's that everything it's that every couple weeks there's also like, if they don't do this, the entire world will crumble into itself and we'll all perish. Like it's that feeling of like doomsday over and over again. And so like this is just the latest thing, like they have to do this. And I do think they have to do this because otherwise the damages they would face would be astronomically higher. So from that standpoint, it seems good on the surface, but there's still a lot of unanswered questions here. So yeah, get it done, and then let's regroup and see what that looks like and how that proceeds forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. This is from Andy Staples from the ACC meetings yesterday. Wake Forest head coach Dave Clawson said that on the perception of the ACC, no matter what we think, an undefeated Florida State got left out of the playoffs. Coaches want to make sure the conference promotes football specifically to help perception, not for a 13-0 team, but for a potential at-larges. And this is what I've been banging the drum for, and a lot of people have since FSU got left out, is that like if they can leave out a 13-0 Power 5 conference team in the last year of the Power 5 from the 4-team playoff, what does that mean for the conferences that aren't the Super 2 down the line when you're talking about 12 teams and at-large bids? Like the fix is in, so to speak. The instructions have been given to the committee about who they have to prioritize over others, and it played out this year and was given a terrible excuse for why it was done, because one player was injured. And that doesn't just go away because now there's 12 teams in the playoff when you're trying to make football better. And this is something the ACC has not been good at because they were built on being a basketball conference. I mean, hell, they're North Carolina and Duke and, Wake Forest and all the original teams in that league prided themselves on their basketball. Like that's what they loved, was basketball. Football was good too, but, the original ACC squads, it was the basketball league, and basketball was a huge thing, Tobacco Road, all of that. And so it took them a long time to kind of get out of that. So I think they've got to, like many, they've got to change their perception, their marketing on that, and pushing football as good. Now, the problem is now that you have Clemson and Florida State trying to leave, those are the two teams that have won your conference more than once in the last 30 years. So even if you're trying to push football, none of the rest of the schools are doing a really that great of a job in it. And so that's why the ACC finds themselves in a quandary in that, the teams that have won the conference the most are the ones that are trying to leave as hard as they can. And the future, to me, like, this is just another thing that makes the ACC's future look bleak, even if they do manage to stay together.
Yeah, but I feel like this is also something that we're going to be talking about their death for, like, perhaps another 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, like, we're sitting here talking about it, and I say we just in general, the college football collective, like, more often than not, you see some of the, like, it's crumbling and it's going to die soon and it's all this. It's like, folks, this could go on another 2 years, like, very easily. And odds are it might and probably will. Like, I mean, based on what we know right now, there's always the settlement aspect of this, and that's what could end this the quickest. And if they could somehow get into a room, which is what they were ordered to do, was it not a couple weeks ago? It was like, go to mediation. The judge told them, like, go to mediation, try to square this away and come to an agreement. Now, that doesn't settle every single lawsuit, but it would at least, like with this house settlement, take care of some of it, right? Like, you can't do it all in one fell swoop, but at least, like, take it down. It's like you got a to-do list, right? Just start attacking it and breaking it down, and then eventually you make progress and you start to get to the end of it. And so I think that's, what the NCAA is having to do here. I think that's what you're wading through with some of these ACC lawsuits of, like, which is going to pop first, the one in Carolina or the one in Florida. What direction happens quicker and what does that mean overall? But yeah, I think this is obviously an ongoing issue, and the feelings are clear. And the North Carolina thing, that wasn't the school itself saying we won out. That was a trustee. Like, that was.
Well, it's multiple trustees.
It's multiple trustees, but it's very much like you said. It was like the Florida State folks that were. It wasn't as though the president of North Carolina was like, we have to get out. It was a trustee who is a fan. Yeah, a very prominent fan, basically.
They're in the early phase. This is the factioning phase, where there are factions that, like, no, we want to be in the ACC.
We need out.
And then there's the other ones that are like, well, the minute that Florida State and Clemson started saying things, that'd be like, well, we should be like that.
Yeah.
That should be us.
Right. And so it's notable. I mean, because North Carolina obviously feels like they're one of those teams that would have an invitation somewhere else, and they're likely right on that front. But yeah, it's a thing right now, at least for Jim Phillips, where this is still your conference and these are still your teams until they're not. And so until ordered otherwise, you do need to do everything you can to maximize your potential, and also hope that maybe, just maybe, there's a chance that somehow or another, like, you could find a way to keep this thing stabilized and onto good footing moving forward. Although I know it's much easier to look at the situation and go, like, yeah, they're totally screwed. They're going to break apart. They're going to collapse and everything else. But right now you got to keep fighting. And I think that they're fighting because what alternative do you have? I mean, and to do so, you do need to acknowledge the problems. And one of the problems is, yes, your perception in football. And I think one of the things Mac Rhodes said a lot yesterday, and it was hard to, like, just, especially when we're talking about such complicated things, like have a soundbite for it, right? Yeah. But I thought if there was a soundbite, it was the one that I tweeted out, which was, for all this talk about the Big 12 and basketball and how glorious sports, are with the main two, and how glorious the basketball product has been as of late, I guess I was actually trying to say. What did he say?
Football.
We need to be good in football.
We need to be good in football.
That's the Big 12 talking. Like, that's the Big 12 King Basketball League, self-proclaimed, but still, that's one of the ADs in that league saying, we're really good in basketball, and basketball's great, and there's a future in basketball, but what's the number one thing we need to be as the Big 12 Conference? We need to be better in football. So, yeah, that's what the ACC needs to focus on as well. It's great to have the history. It's great to have the basketball championships that they have, but this is all ultimately boiling down to football. Like, the money part of it, the prestige part of it, the access part of it, all those things boil down to football. We're not talking about the SEC the way that we do these days because they won a bunch of basketball national championships. Now, had they done that, we'd be talking about them like, oh my God, they're great in basketball, but they would have nearly the sway they have. They have the sway they have because they did it in football.
Yeah.
And so football is king, and that's not changing, and I think that's just a realistic acknowledgement by everybody of what needs to change. It's like, yeah, we could go deep in the tourney, but we need to make sure we're in the playoff in football, and then, yeah, do our damage there. And so once Florida State got snubbed, man, this is what got all this rolling without a doubt. So, yeah, you better focus on football because that's what butters everybody's bread.
Yeah, absolutely. $5 super chat from Chris. Hey, guys, been a while. With the Pac-12 dying and the ACC being torn to shreds, I wonder why ESPN isn't doing more to help the ACC be stable. I've wondered this the whole time. Like, I get promoting the SEC, like, to the point that they have with the SEC network.
Yeah.
But they also own the ACC network. And the level of promotion is not the same. And I guess maybe it's because the level of feedback from the viewers of the ACC network is lower than it would be from the SEC. I don't know. Like, to me, I do think that you need to, like, if you've got investment in it and something, you've got to promote it full tilt, and but the ACC has been kind of regarded by ESPN as the second most important college football property or college sports property that they have. And I just don't get that from a marketing standpoint. It's a fair point. I don't know. There might be an answer out there that makes sense. Like if I got Jimmy Pitaro and Bob Iger in here and say, hey, you guys have this great deal with the ACC, but wouldn't it be better if more people like knew about it or watched it or it was promoted better? Like the same amount of resources you put to the SEC, like wouldn't that be beneficial for you as a partner? I don't know. Like I don't get it. But again, they'd have to explain that to me.
Yeah, I only can think of the fact that they're just loving the fact they got a sweetheart deal.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got that option coming up later this summer, correct? On what is it, August, I believe, when we'll have – or no, it's August when there has to be a notification, right, by the schools to say that they're leaving. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's the deadline for that. But no, what I'm thinking of is what ESPN – picking up the contract, right, in that the start of next year when that occurs. So that's an interesting deadline looming as well, just to make note of, like, later this summer, if a team's trying to leave, if a team were to try to leave to get into a new league next year, it would have to be here in the next, 3 months. And I don't foresee that. I don't know about you. I don't think anybody's quite ready to make a move in less than a year's time to a new league, nor would all of the stuff going on probably allow that to happen. But yeah, all I can think of is just that they've got a good deal, and they don't really need to go out there and fight on behalf of the ACC. Now, as far as like the promotional aspect of it, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, unless it's just the SEC is such a sweetheart of a commodity, and they get such a reaction to it in comparison to perhaps the ACC. It's just one of those things like, this thing's surging, let's put all of our weight behind this and push it while let's put the rocket ship behind it, right? And that kind of is what it feels like. So why not put the rocket ship behind the ACC? Maybe the metrics that they get back tell them that it's not worth the squeeze the same way that it is when you do it with the schools in the Southeast. But beyond that, yeah, I don't know. That's a legitimately great question of, just promotionally. Why have you not presented them the same? Because so much of, bottom line, the SEC is who it is because its teams won national championships at an alarming rate from 2003 to present day.
Yeah.
They've won 85% of the national championships. The ACC hasn't quite done that. They've had Florida State pop in there. And so maybe that's part of it is just, again, the
FSU and Clemson have snuck in.
And Clemson, Clemson, I can't forget them. They've had multiple championships as well. So with that being said, I don't know. I guess just maybe it's not worth the full meal push the same way it is for the other conference. But beyond that, it's a great question. I don't know why you wouldn't throw your weight behind them other than you just don't feel the need to, or you feel like it's not necessarily going to make as much of a difference. But I don't know anything beyond that.
That's a thing that I just wonder. I absolutely just totally wonder that. I've always wondered it. It just doesn't. And I'm not a TV network exec. I don't know how long I would make it in that business. I don't. I'd like to think I know what's good, but also you hired me at CBS and they said, here's another CSI or NCIS. We're like, can you guys come to me with something that you haven't done before? Give me a new idea.
Chicago, fill in the blank.
New idea. And they're like, all right, well, what if we put it? I don't know. It can't be said in any other universe. Just come to me with a new idea. And then the shareholders say, listen, the people like this. So I get it. There's different things. And maybe part of it is you only have so many things you can promote and so much oxygen you can give to things. And when you have to do the NFL the most and the SEC and the NBA and Major League Baseball and hockey, and you get all to this, and then you're like, okay, well, it's time to talk about the ACC. Not only that, they have a network, but you also
do a good job on that network. I don't have it, but I've seen it in various places, and I think they do an excellent. They have really good broadcasters and everything.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. But again, and look, I get that when you have Alabama and Ole Miss wind up on the SEC network that night because it happens to be the third best game. That's a lot better than Wake Forest and Boston College. I get it. Like, the ratings are going to be higher. But like you said, Craig, the SEC earned this big swing in D because of the titles. They earned that, but they've solidified a fort around their legitimacy with marketing. Like that's the other thing. It's like, so even though the ACC doesn't have the same, they can't whip it out on the table and say, look at us, but they could market better. I mean, ESPN, they could do that better.
Who's the ACC Feinbaum propaganda minister?
Well, it's Parker and Durham is the show that they have.
Okay.
And those guys, Kim Coulter brought him up, and he said that Parker and Durham can't hold Feinbaum's jock. And part of it is,
there you go.
like,
That's the answer for
it. And I like Parker and Durham. I do, but Wes Durham's an old school broadcaster, so he's not like.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that. They do a good job. Yeah,
he's great. Like, so Parker and Durham, they're really good. Except for the fact that when you're ESPN, you've got Feinbaum, who's a shill, and B, hyper-ballistic to a way that he can hang with Stephen A. and guys like that, then those guys aren't that. Like,
gotcha. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
If Feinbaum didn't exist,
they're not like blindly promoting it, regardless of. Yeah, okay.
So if Feinbaum didn't exist, let's just say that he wasn't in the world, then the SEC would have Marty and McGee, who are like, their show's really good. Like, I really enjoy their banter back and forth. I really like both of them, but their show's more, like, based in reality, as opposed to Paul Feinbaum, whose show is very much made for ESPN now, where it's. And I'm not saying he's not good on the air.
Yeah, we're not trying to crap on him.
Not trying to crap on him, but
what?
his style is more what ESPN is now, which is guy yelling at camera.
No, he's not really. That's not his style. I mean, it's more his phone callers are the ones yelling at the camera.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, he has good interviews. He does a lot of good things. Like, he's a smart guy, but he's also a shill. Like, and that's what he is. Like, he has the belief. He's very cable news. Like, my thing is better than your thing, and there's nothing you can say to prove it wrong, right? And that's what works on cable mostly than measured talk, like Parker and Durham, Marty McGee. So, and I'm not crapping on Feinbaum. I'm just saying, like, it sounds like I am. I kind of maybe have that opinion.
Going on a little bit of a rant here, but
I mean, like. His book is called My Conference is Better Than Your Conference.
Right, I know. Yeah, we get it. Like, I mean, like, let's get off of just him in particular, but the promotion of the ACC and the SEC has been vastly different.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they've got somebody like that who's more than happy to go up there and, be a Stephen A. type and promote, regardless of whatever the circumstances are, pro this affiliation message. But, I think it'll be an easy decision based on the contract they have now to see the ESPN folks pick up the ACC and get the maximize that sweetheart of a contract that they signed years ago. Obviously, that's what Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina and everybody else is grumbling about or outright fighting. But to your original question about the promotion, I don't know. I think it's the winning part of it trumps everything else, because a Feinbaum or whoever else, if they're up there talking and saying the same things they were saying, but it was like Alabama's won like one title and Auburn and Florida, like it was spread out like 3 or 4 over like 20 years, then people would just laugh and turn it off. But it's the fact that there is actual backing to it. That's why it's legitimized. And it's also different fan bases, man. Like, the SEC fans are different. And you can easily poke fun at it in some ways, but they are different and passionate and very much have that attitude. That's why they vibe with Feinbaum of, we're better than you and this is what we're the best at and you're not better than us. And because it's what they have.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it means so much.
The good news for him is, like, they keep backing him up. I mean, like, they're
right. You can go talk trash when you are technically winning all the time. So I think he hits the heart of those fans, and they're very passionate. And I think if you're ESPN and you get the metrics back and the ratings back and you see all the success that you're having, like, you're going to put the rocket strap to that thing and fly it to the moon. And with the ACC, it's a little bit harder to answer, other than just, I guess it's just not the same return. And it's also a situation where you maybe just don't feel the need to put as much behind that, because you've got them locked in for I mean, at least for the next couple of years and perhaps beyond that for another decade, if you so decide, and if the lawsuits go a certain way. So, yeah, don't have anything else to add to that. But
all right.
It was a great question to begin with.
A couple things rapid fire before we've got to go to break, and then Ryan Andrade joins us. We'll talk college basketball portal and PGA with him. He's the best at both, talking about basketball and college football. All right, some transfer portal news, and I'll start out with one that is less exciting than this other one. We'll build to the top one. But we'll start with New Mexico State transfer Eli Stowers, who's been a quarterback at Texas A&M and New Mexico State. He's been Aggies back-to-back. He's now a Commodore, as he is on his way to Vanderbilt as a tight end. So he is changing positions, and he'll be there, and people are intrigued by him at that position. He's super athletic. 35 catches, 366 yards, and 2 touchdowns as a sophomore, and so he's moving there, and so he's going to be a full-time tight end as opposed to like a experimental tight end and move on into the SEC.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he'd be there if he wasn't switching positions.
Yeah,
so
no, I don't
that's
think so.
probably a good call on his part if you're already dropping down the significant level that you did to begin with, now making another move, then yeah, that's probably the football gods pointing you in a certain direction. So great school in Vanderbilt. We love Vanderbilt on this program. We respect them and their place in the SEC. But yeah, that's an interesting name, and yet another Aggie high prospect that just didn't amount to what you hoped that it would all amount to. During the last few years in College Station.
A&M looks like that. They're always that meal that you think is going to be really good. Like you see something on TV, like, oh, man, I'm going to go get that. That's going to be great. And then you get there and you're like, oh, well, they did some really good production on this.
I mean, he was a solid player coming out, but, like, again, their recruiting classes have flamed out in grand style. And part of that's their own making by, the promotional part of it, just so in your face, the number one class and all that. People were waiting for their downfall, and they've enjoyed that. He certainly wasn't the biggest piece or pieces, but good for him to end up at Vandy.
And this one, second tier. Just keep up there. But General Booty on his way to Louisiana Monroe, by the way. So enjoy that, Monroe fans.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they've got a fun NIL thing for him to play off the name. Oklahoma had T-shirts and whatnot. So yeah, when he went there, I didn't really see his path to playing time, and certainly with
he was kind of the emergency quarterback.
Yeah, so it was a situation where he provided depth, but I can understand, like with R.J. Martinez at Baylor or countless other dudes, there's other opportunities to play elsewhere and actually play. So yeah, good for General Booty. He says Louisiana Monroe. So yeah, good for him, and good luck to him and trying to carve out a niche for himself down there in the boot.
And finally, Cormani McClain transferring to the Florida Gators. He is going there as a walk-on currently, and that is something we saw Mikael Harrison Pilot do from Houston to Texas Tech. I don't think they will be walk-ons permanently. Also, the name walk-on is misleading because let's not think that he's paying his own tuition either.
Right, yeah.
That's not happening in this world of NIL. That neither is Mikael Harrison Pilot at Texas Tech. Like they're going to school for free and they're getting NIL. That's what they're doing. Probably different levels, Cormani and Mikael Harrison Pilot, but Cormani McClain to Florida was one of the top recruits in the number one recruited position just a year ago in 2023 when he went to Colorado and just didn't mesh with Deion Sanders there, and questions about his work ethic and all that. Now he heads to a Florida team that needs stars, and if he can turn it on there for them, that's going to be good news for the Gators. But technically right now a walk-on, but I'm sure he'll be under their under 85 scholarship soon, which also leads to part of this NCAA settlement involves reworking how scholarships work, Craig, if they do that, and I think that's going to kind of end walk-ons as we know them now.
Yeah, it very well could. That's some other aspects of, that settlement and just the talks about the future that is interesting, the scholarship talks. So we'll see where that takes us. I'm sure we'll be talking about that more in the coming months, but it is funny to see the same coaches who complain about all these things then find a new way to beat the system, don't they? Finding it as a preferred walk-on, this former 5-star cornerback. Like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's smart. I mean, But again, this is what I talk about of like this boo-hoo, and then the minute there's a chance to find a way to bend the system or cheat the system, coaches find a way to do it in college football every single freaking time. But that's a luxury to have him on a preferred walk-on scholarship for right now, and we'll see how much of a luxury it is to have him on the team. I mean, Colorado, for all the problems people think that they may have or wish that they have or whatever, he didn't fit there. Now, was it because of him or was it because of the situation? There's plenty of sides, plenty of back and forth. That's all well documented, easily found on social media. The line has been drawn in the sand on, what Colorado's at fault for and things like that. But I thought that this one actually kind of left a bad taste in the mouths of people regarding Cormani McClain, even anti-Colorado people, just because of the way it was kind of presented initially. I know he had some things to say after the fact. So I think for Cormani McClain now, I mean, you couldn't ask for much better than being, in the SEC, being at a solid program like Florida. I know they have their own issues right now, but it's still Florida. And I think most of all, here's an opportunity to throw a middle finger at your detractors and say, it wasn't me not working hard, or it wasn't, or even if it was, then go show them, because, buddy, you're not going to get a bunch more chances. Like, if you go out to Florida and you flame out in Gainesville because you didn't want to work hard enough, well, guess what? That's a label that's going to get super glued on now, because that's going to be a couple of stops where that's been the case. So, a great, fresh opportunity for him to prove himself and prove why he was such a highly rated prospect. But it's going to come down to Cormani McClain, not anybody else. But that's a pickup that I think you're excited about, but definitely intrigued by, mostly if you're a Gators fan.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, we're going to talk NCAA basketball transfer portal and the PGA Championship with RotoWire's Ryan Andrade. That comes up next. This is 365 Sports.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Carry On Solutions is a full-service IT management service provider and provides professional services for businesses servicing clients in the U.S. and globally. They are authorized partners with Microsoft, Quest, Veeam, NetApp, HP Enterprise, and Cisco Duo. Whether you are outsourcing IT services, merging companies, or wanting to tackle cybersecurity challenges, contact Carry On Solutions. We are IT. Call or email Dave at 832-437-0138 or sales@Carry On Solutions. That's CARRION Solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. I don't know if he's an old friend now, but he's becoming a regular guest. We love having him on. Ryan Andrade from RotoWire.com, and two hats that he wears there is golf and basketball. So we'll talk basketball first so that Craig can participate in the first part of the interview, and then you and I will talk golf and ignore him completely.
I'm not gonna fake it, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fake it. Look, Craig is the most authentic human being I might have ever met in my life. There is not a fake it till you make it bone in his body, and I aspire to that.
Well, it's to my own detriment, Paul, so don't aspire to it too much. But yeah, I'm not a golf fan, but let's get on into hoops. Yeah. And I know there's some golf fans out there that'd be happy to hear about that.
So we'll talk. Let's talk transfer portal, Ryan. The last couple of weeks have been really interesting. I saw Keyshawn Pryor made his decision, and he's off to Louisville, who's killing it in the portal. We talked earlier about Kansas. They haven't done anything. They're probably going to have to replace Riley Kugel, who's not getting in there. Baylor's had a heck of a week. What have you thought of the last couple weeks of roster shuffling in basketball?
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on. I mean, Baylor, I think, has been a big winner over the last little while here, adding Omier from Miami, who I'm not sure many people expected him to really go anywhere. But I mean, that gives them a big man to go with, Roach and some other good returning guards they have. So honestly, my big takeaway is just that, the Big 12, I mean, you look at it and, I feel like we've come into several of the past, 4 or 5 seasons saying, man, the Big 12 looks really good. Looks like they're going to be the best conference again. And man, this year, I think everyone is, Kansas seems like they probably are going to be the preseason number 1 again. But I mean, I don't think Baylor, I don't think Houston, I don't think Iowa State is very far behind at all. Arizona, if Caleb Love decides to come back. So, I mean, there's a lot of teams right there. And I'll just, there's not really too many names left. I think the biggest thing people are just waiting for is, some of those draft decisions. See if they go. A lot of them were smart and they entered the portal right before it closed on May 1st. So they left their options completely open. And so if there's a few of those guys like Jameer Watkins, if he decides to come back, he's probably the biggest name left in the portal.
Ryan, one of the biggest, if not the biggest story in college hoops this offseason was obviously at Kentucky and Mark Pope, now the man there leading to the vacancy at BYU. We know Scott Drew was involved. Other names were bandied about as well. And there was a lot of support. For as frustrating as that coaching search might have been for a day or two when a Drew, for example, took his name out of the hat, it seemed by the end of his opening press conference that Ryan Pope had won over Big Blue Nation, at least for the time being. What have you made of the moves that they've made since he's taken over and tried to start to build up this roster?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly really excited with what they got going on. I think we've sort of gotten away from the way Kentucky used to be good with all the one and done prospects and try to just get all these really talented guys to gel together for one season that have no experience on this level of college basketball. So I think, this year, obviously they're going in a completely different direction. They've brought in a lot of good transfers. Amari Williams, you got Andrew Carr from Wake Forest. You got Creesa, who started his career at Arizona and now was at West Virginia last year. You got Kobe Barea, who was one of the best 3-point shooters last year. I really, honestly, probably 2-3 weeks ago, you looked at the roster and they didn't really have anybody at all. I mean, you knew it was going to change because of, the amount of NIL money that Kentucky has and some of the other names that were in the portal. But I think he's done a really nice job putting this roster together. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see this team on second weekend of the NCAA tournament next year.
Ryan, Louisville and Pat Kelsey are killing it too. I mean, but they had to rebuild the whole roster. Louisville and Kentucky, like the whole state of Kentucky in basketball, has all new players all across the roster. How quickly, and what is it, very tough ACC, do you think he can get them pointed back to being at least 80% Louisville again?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a while. Obviously I like the pieces they have. I guess one of the only good things you can say is that, they're playing in the ACC, right? And there's, the last few years they've only gotten, 3, 4, 5 teams in the tournament. So, it's never easy taking over a big program like this. Everybody's going to go through some of, struggles and things like that. But, I think they did a pretty solid job in the portal. And, I think Louisville is, it's one of those programs that, you want to see do good. Those are, one of the higher tier basketball programs. And I think it's good for the sport anytime that you get some of those teams that are competing and, at the top when we go into March.
There's a lot of consternation right now at Oklahoma over the state of their men's basketball program. Got lost in the shuffle of the Big 12. Obviously, disappointment there at the end of the season. A slow start to the transfer portal as well. Now making the move into the SEC, and obviously very excited on the football part of those things. But any thoughts on Oklahoma basketball, just sort of where they find themselves at the moment and kind of in the big picture of where they're sitting right now?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what people expected when they brought Porter Moser in. They, obviously he had a bunch of great runs in the NCAA tournament before coming here with Loyola. And it's been a little bit of a struggle. Oklahoma, I think, SEC, you're not going down too much. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be quite as tough on a nightly basis going from the Big 12 to the SEC. But, they got some good pieces, I think. I'll be interested to see, both, Oklahoma and Texas, really. I think, both of them had their fair amount of guys transfer out, and they're trying to replace some of those guys coming in. So, both Porter Moser, Rodney Terry, I think, listen, like it's not going to be easy to take this team back to prominence where they ultimately want to be. But, at least I think they'll get some reprieve going to a slightly worse conference, I would say, in the SEC. But we'll see what happens.
I have just a couple more basketball questions, and Craig, let me know. What do you think, one, of Bronny James likely staying in the NBA draft, given that, he had the heart condition, he's been cleared, but he didn't really get going last year for USC at all. And look, he doesn't have to worry about anything the rest of his life, but is this a good decision for his NBA career? Because to go probably right to the G League. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't really know what his best option was, right? I mean, obviously, yeah, he didn't get to showcase, his full ability. I think a lot of that had to do with, the heart issue that he had going in the last season, having to miss quite a bit of games, not really ever getting fully in rhythm. USC as a whole, they didn't really get in rhythm at all last season until like the very, very end. It's sort of a weird spot, right? Because, you're going to get all these NBA teams out here that think, oh, like we can draft Bronny James in the second round, which should he be drafted in the second round just based on him as a player? tough to say. I don't know. Maybe if we had seen another year at the college level to see him like fully develop and see what he could do against, real competition. But I mean, when there's a chance that, LeBron doesn't have too many years left, he's said plenty of times openly that he wants to play with his son. And, you get a team like Charlotte or somebody like that, has no business landing a guy like LeBron if they draft his son, that's open season really. Like, so
small price to pay, I guess.
Right. I mean, not often a second rounder is going to hit to where it's going to be, a big time contributor for you. So, I mean, yeah, I personally, I would have really liked to see him give it one more go in college, whether that was with USC or not, just to sort of see what he could do with a full off season. And then, obviously a full season of play. So, but this is what he thought his best option was. So we'll just see what happens.
Doug Gottlieb taking the job at Green Bay and still doing his radio show.
Yeah, that's interesting. I saw that and I was, I don't even know how to react to that really. I mean, Gottlieb is, he's a character. I'll say that. There's a lot of things he says I don't agree with, but I thought he's a pretty solid host. But I guess there was some rumor that he was in the running for that job last offseason and got beat out by somebody, and then they left. So it's not like on Deion Sanders level, obviously, but like you kind of got that this guy that wants to live in the media, but also at the same time is trying to get respected from his players and coach a basketball team and try to keep them competitive. So that'll be fascinating to see how that works out.
All right, let's talk PGA now. Brooks Koepka's won 3 of the last 6. Scottie Scheffler's the hottest golfer on the planet right now. Rory, is a favorite for a lot of people. What do you look for as they return to Valhalla?
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of storylines coming, right? You got Scottie Scheffler. Obviously, he is, the clear number 1 in golf, but he hasn't played in 3 weeks because he's been waiting for this baby to pop out, and it finally did last week. So, you sort of wonder, he was playing some of the best golf we've ever seen, and now he's got to handle being a dad, and, what focus does that take away from his golf game? And so that'll be interesting to see how he bounces back. I wouldn't be surprised if he started a little slow on Thursday. But then you got Rory coming in off of 2 wins. This was, we're coming back to Valhalla, and the last time Rory McIlroy won a major championship was 2014 at Valhalla, which is like still just saying that is shocking. I mean, he was 25. He had won, I think, 4 majors and 10 starts or 11 starts or something like that. And I mean, nobody thought we'd be sitting here with him at age, 35 and only having 4 majors still. So that's crazy. Brooks Koepka is coming in off a win in his last start on the Live Tour. And, he's looking for his 4th PGA Championship. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things. I think those are really the 3 main storylines that everybody's looking at. I mean, it should be a great test. I've heard there's a lot of, it's very wet there. There might be some stoppages during the week. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But I'm excited for this week.
Who are your favorites outside of that? Like guys that you think could make a move?
Yeah, I mean, the guy I'm actually picking to win this week is Bryson DeChambeau.
Oh,
I think he's about 28-1. He led through 2 rounds at Augusta and drove it very well. There was a lot of stuff made not that long ago about how this guy was just drinking like 18 protein shakes a day, trying to just be the biggest man on the planet, and that. It led to a U.S. Open win, but after that, not too much. So he sort of slimmed down a little bit. He's got a driver that's, keeping the ball in play a little bit better. He drove it very well at Augusta en route to T6 finish. And he was top top 5 last year at the PGA Championship. So, I really like his chances to sort of sneak in behind some of those top guys and get the job done.
Yeah, his biggest enemy is Bryson DeChambeau. Like, it really is. Like,
Absolutely.
if he could keep the devil on his shoulder quiet, he'd be a lot better. I think that he's just kind of a person that, has those things like, yeah, I'm gonna be the Incredible Hulk of golfers, and it worked out once, and then he's like, yeah, I was right, and then I would tell you that as a Tiger fan, the saddest thing I ever heard about him was how gung-ho he got into Navy SEAL workouts. And then nobody told him, was like, Tiger, it's great that you're doing this, but, like, you're not a Navy SEAL. So, do golf stuff. Like, this stuff is maybe more high impact. And, I don't know if you've ever seen an old Navy SEAL. Like, they're not running around like they used to. You need to do golf workouts. So Bryson needs to be kind of the same way.
Yeah, I've always said, Tiger, like, if he had like the mental makeup of like Jack and just eliminated the distractions better, if he didn't change his swings, 10 different times, I think we'd be sitting here with Tiger still being healthy and still like a legit threat to win some of these majors. And he might have 30 majors. He might have 120 wins, something like that. I think, obviously you can't take away any of the things he's accomplished to this point, but there was a lot left out there. I mean, when he sort of went on that downfall, he was, mid-30s, which is like prime time for most golfers. So it would have been interesting to see what he could have run up if everything had stayed fine.
I always used to say that I would love to be just hired as Tiger Woods' life coach, and he'd be like, well, what do I do in this situation? Like, oh, you're Tiger Woods. Like, let me be your caddy. Like, you're not going to listen to anybody about golf. You clearly don't. You kind of have your own ideas. I'll be like, do what you want. Like, be Tiger Woods. Like, look, Superman might fly to the Fortress of Solitude sometimes, but most of the time he just, he's Superman.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's really it. I think if Tiger just owned his swing from a younger age and, I think he could have, there was just so many different points, like even within the run where like he'd have, 2 years where he's fixing his swing and he doesn't, isn't really competitive at a major for a while. And then, obviously, I mean, a lot of this stuff is, listen, it's self-inflicted. So, I mean, it is what it is, but it would have been, there's a lot of majors that I think he left out there, to be honest. So
me too. Ryan, have a great weekend, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, guys. Have a good one. All right.
Ryan Andrade, rotowire.com. And certainly, I know Craig tunes out during the golf time, but
no, listen, man. I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
Like I don't watch the sport on a regular basis. So I mean, I sometimes if there's something that's just super newsworthy, I'll pop in. But like the ins and outs of like how this guy's playing, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna pretend that I do. So I enjoy hearing about it though, especially. I know Smokey's very invested in it, and those who know what they're talking about, I enjoy listening to from that standpoint. But I'm not one of them. So,
golf, it started with me with golf more. Like the business of it is very interesting to me right now. Like I really hope that they figure something out.
Interesting as in a complete effing mess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like it's intriguing. Like I'm interested. I hope they get it worked out because I'm one who wants to see the PGA figured out, but it's kind of their own fault.
I feel like as a complete casual observer, as I've already noted here, there is nothing drawing me to watch it right now.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have Tiger Woods at his prime to get me to draw in. Now, I know somebody would inevitably say, well, you don't know the skill set. Yeah, I've acknowledged that. Like, I acknowledge I don't know, but like for the casual people to watch, like you need that pull.
Yeah, you want Craig and Garrett guys out there that'd be like, you know what, I'm not into golf, but like I've heard this is really like
and Scotty Scheffler's a pull. Like that, he's great. I get that. But like all the other nonsense that you hear, like I wonder about casual college football fans who are just like they turn on something and all they hear is about lawsuits and stuff. It's like, what is this? It's the same thing with it's similar very much with LIV and the PGA and all the back and forth there. I mean, I don't think having the best in the world split up and then coming together on occasion it has been beneficial for anybody really. There's a lot of guys who are far richer than they ever would have been. And for them, congratulations. But beyond that, I don't know what good it's really done for the game of golf. I feel like it's taken away from it, if anything, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
Look, it didn't work out when there was an NFL and AFL. They eventually merged. The NBA and ABA, I mean, you want to call that a merger. They took some of the teams, but really the NBA killed the ABA. But they merged and did that, and then I guess downsized a little bit, got rid of some redundancies. So that's all. Like, there's never been a competitive league with Major League Baseball. Monopolies in some things are kind of what you need, and I would tell golf with the PGA and LIV and why they need to find a way to make this work in spite of how much I hate the PIF even being involved in these things. But just as a golf fan, like, moving forward, if I want to watch good golf, I don't want it to be like boxing where the heavyweight title fight is between one guy I've heard of and another guy who's like, he's the guy.
Well, he's the number 2 in their rankings, but he'd be like number 11 in the actual pound-for-pound overall rankings if everybody was under the same umbrella.
Because there's an alphabet soup out there of what it is, and these guys aren't together, and boxing, never did that, and, it's not sustainable at all. When you have your best players playing at different events, and not only different events, but one of them is 72 holes, the other's 54. Like, it's different.
And one of them's making like $750 million and bitching about like the access. And it's like, just shut up, dude. You like, I mean, like, I don't. There's millionaires talking, and you're like, okay. And then there, you kind of when you're like, you just signed this Saudi LIV deal. I'm like, I don't care what you're complaining about. It doesn't matter to me. Like, unless you're trying to get everybody back under umbrella and play a game, I don't want to hear about any of your complaints. I'm sorry. I know there's real world problems for everybody, no matter how much they have in their bank account or not. But man, when you're flashing that amount of money and using it as the entire draw to this league to begin with, that's what it was all about, was money. So you can't not talk about the money, but it's just like, I have a hard time, sweating or shedding a tear for millionaires to some extent. But some of these guys, I don't want to hear Brooks Koepka bitching about whatever it is he's bitching about at this point. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm sure if I was more in tune with it and on the day-to-day, like reading the blogs and listening to the podcast, I'd have more interest in it. But that's just the casual observers. Like, there's more money than ever flowing through the sport, and yet it seems less interesting than ever from a competition standpoint. Or maybe I'm reading that wrong, and I don't matter in the overall equation, so that's okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. When we come back, I've got a couple of Netflix stories, Craig, I'd like to go through. One that has to do with it's official. They're getting the NFL, and we know which games they're getting now. And another one that just has to do with one of the brighter spots of the 90s. This is 365 Sports.
It is time to announce the 14th annual Academic All-Stars team right here on 365 Sports. Hi, this is David Smoak. Our 20 Academic All-Stars have an overall grade point average of 103.2. 5 members are headed to a military academy. There are 6 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians. Our 2024 Academic All-Stars team includes Ryder Bagley from Groesbeck, Chilton's Colton Bossy, West Cole Bryant, Casey Cavanaugh from Troy, Lorena's Emily Flores, Whitney's J.C. Green, Franklin's Sarah Heisler, Academy's Madeline Hammonds, Waco High's Alexis Hookham, Kate Humphreys from Clifton, Marshall Cobb of Midway, Temple's Claire Little, Saladow's Case Magin, Houston Powers of Crawford, and Thorndale's Emily Reeves, Landon Richardson of Lampasas, Milford Shimon Rogers Jr., Brady Schultz of Abbott, March Monty Swainer, and Avery Thaler from Fairfield. The 2024 Academic All-Stars team is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, Westdale Asset Management, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ray Broker Air Conditioning and Heating, HEB, Award Specialties, Healer Printing, Wolf Florist, Baylor Club, and the Waco Foundation. We will honor the 14th annual Academic All-Stars team at our annual banquet, Wednesday, May 15th at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. We're proud to recognize these elite student athletes in Greater Central Texas, our 14th annual Academic All-Stars team, right here on 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back. Smokey's not here today, but he's here in spirit, and we've got the Academic All-Stars tonight. And again, keep him in your thoughts tomorrow. Big surgery for him, but everything's going to be all right. And Craig, I know we're all going to be kind of, pins and needles tomorrow a little bit because of that. But, I think he's in a good spot about it, so.
Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, they weren't watching the last 5 minutes of the show yesterday.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
He's having prostate surgery. What would you call that? Proactive.
Mm-hmm.
His brother, y'all might remember we missed some time a month or so ago. His brother passed away after a very long battle with it. His other brother, he's got 3 brothers. The oldest just passed after years-long battle. That was awful, just awful to watch. As people who have had people with long battles of cancer understand, just watching somebody slowly wither away is just is brutal. And so between that and the fact that his other brother had it as well a few years ago and had the surgery and is okay, there's a history there is what I'm trying to get at, a very near history. And so, he's taking a proactive measure after some tests and talking with doctors and stuff. So, he's going to be on the mend for a few days. It's not just going to be this week. It's going to probably be a little bit beyond that. And I don't know when the return date will be. If it was up to him, it would be much sooner than it probably should be. So that's why we're going to also have a say on that as well, because otherwise he'd be here Monday. And, then in between commercial breaks, crying in pain or whatever the case may be, but got to be on the air. So no, he's going to take his time. That's part of the luxury of kind of what we do, is having some of that type of flexibility for a situation like this. So if you could offer up whatever it is you believe in, just best positive thoughts or wishes or prayers or whatever it is, then offer that up if you wouldn't mind to him here over the next few days, because it's still much as there's success rates and things, it's still nerve-wracking. It's still very, much not something that you want to have to go through or deal with yourself or the people around you. And so, yeah, a little distracted, but I think he'll be fine. So very much looking forward to when he can come back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, a couple of things. Let's talk the real sports thing and then the fake sports thing.
Get your prostate checked, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Check your PSA, all of that. I, in fact, was at the doctor this morning and asked her when I had to, and she said, sooner.
Right now? No.
She's like, if you want to, I can do it right now, but you don't need to yet. So I was like, okay, good. She asked me some other questions like, is there any reason you think so? And
right.
Some of those
I'm gonna have to be very mindful. I just cited 3 cases, 2 uncles and my dad now that have dealt brushes with it. So
yeah, and but no, I don't yet, but I'm certainly, like, he had me thinking about it. I was like, well, I'm going to the doctor. I'll ask her, like, when's the time? She's like, it's soon for you. Like, you're not,
And I'll tell you this too, like, and we'll get back to sports, but I was somebody who did not go to the doctor for a very long time. Like, it wasn't even like a planned thing. It was just like, that's just kind of how it happened. It just, how stuff is.
Look, if you're not sick and you don't feel bad, like, and you're younger, you're like, what are you going to the doctor?
Whatever. And then there's also like, well, I don't really want to know if there's any, it's kind of like that. And so it just went on way longer than it needed to. But I finally went eventually after like a really long time. And the peace of mind afterwards, like, you can psych yourself out is what I'm trying to say, and it's really not that scary, and it's really not that daunting. And yes, you would rather know. Would rather know. So, yeah, if that can just, like, if what we're dealing with right now is just something that kicks in for somebody and they, find out something sooner rather than later, then that would be great. But, yeah, just be mindful of your health is all I'm trying to say, and that's just very much weighing on my mind right now. Had an uncle pass away earlier this month that I just mentioned. Had another one just yesterday. After we got off the show, got a phone call that was completely out of nowhere, and then he's going through what he's going through, and so I'm starting to sound like him, like getting older. Like, just go to your doctor. But hey, it's true. So
it's true.
Go to the doctor.
Welcome to age 40, Craig. These are the things that
35.
I mean, you could keep telling yourself that, but yeah, but I say that, and like, we have this new sponsor over my shoulder that I think you guys can tell what kind of sponsor it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, but thanks to them for being aboard Urgi at Health. But I want to get to these Netflix things. So Netflix is going to get the Christmas Day games for the next few years on the in the NFL. 2 exclusive rights to 2 NFL games on Christmas Day in 2024, 2025, and 2026. They will air on broadcast TV in the team cities and be on U.S. mobile devices on NFL Plus. And the games that we're going to get this year are a couple pretty good ones, at least. They seem to be now. Chiefs and Steelers and Ravens and Texans will be the Netflix games. And this is Netflix's foray into live team sports. They have, I know, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson coming up as well.
Yeah.
So there's going to be more and more of that. And they did a live Tom Brady roast, which I'm sure they can extract into some sports numbers for themselves, even though that's not technically sports, but sports fans are watching that.
In general, they're getting more into live, period.
Yeah.
I mean, John Mulaney had his deal. Cat Williams, didn't he have something here recently as well?
Chris Rock's done a live special.
So they're just getting more into that, period. But I think we've all been waiting for the live sports element, and we talked about that quite a bit last summer with the Pac-12 TV deal and just the future of streaming and all of that. So, yeah, I don't think this is a surprise necessarily, but that they're getting further into sports. But, yeah, I mean, this has all happened very quick that suddenly they're launching NFL games.
Yeah. I mean, it happened. That happened real fast, relatively. And, all it took was Amazon doing it for a year, and they're like, no. We've got to do this too. And the NFL all too happy to make that happen and spread themselves across platforms. Peacock doing the streaming-only game, also having the fact that, they knew what game that was going to be months in advance, and then Taylor Swift starts dating Travis Kelce. And it's going to be like nothing could have worked out better for Peacock on that deal that, oh, yeah, we're going to get a Chiefs game. Great. Oh, wait, the most famous person on earth is now at the game and dating it and has fans that will watch anything that she's just sitting at.
Taylor Swift's dating Travis Kelce? I had no clue.
Yeah. I mean,
I've just been stuck in a cave for the last year.
Yeah.
So otherwise, I wouldn't have known that.
Craig thought it was still Joe.
Yeah. Whoever that is. That
the
vaguely
weird
sounds
British
familiar.
actor boyfriend.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's great. That's something that has certainly taken, I think, all of the NFL to like a different level is the Swiftie factor and just how all-consuming that storyline was last year. I mean, it was the number one story in the entire league for like the entire second half of the season. Mm-hmm. It feels like certainly down the home stretch to the end of the year. But yeah, I think I don't know if you had a point to mention Taylor Swift there.
No, it's just like so neat. No, but Peacock had that huge thing,
right.
and so
they got a big push. For that,
Netflix is going to say, well, we want some of that.
Yeah, no, I mean it makes sense. The NFL, if you're going to invest in something, I mean it's going to cost you a pretty penny, but I think normally people who do, you get a nice return on your investment, and it is a juggernaut, and people have proved that it doesn't matter what games are on, like. When people talk about super leagues and things like that, and we use the same examples of the bottom of the barrel teams that are typically always the bottom of the barrel teams, and like who's paying to watch those guys? But in the NFL, those bottom of the barrel teams still have millions of viewers. Like that's the difference, and so you're going to get a return on your investment. I would think just about every time when it comes to the NFL. So if you're going to go into sports, I think it's certainly a safer route to go than like trying to do part of the NBA regular season or do Major League Baseball like Apple has done with MLB, MLS. The NBA with their contract, it'll be I'm very curious to see what elements of that is spread out over streaming and those types of things, because that's certainly going to be a component there as well. We know with college football how that started to integrate itself. And all I can think of is like, I mean, I have Netflix already. Honestly, if they didn't have like half the World War II documentaries that is like background music to me, like almost sometimes, then I don't even know if I'd have Netflix. But now, like, I got to have it for the NFL Christmas Day game. So I'm sure that'll keep people subscribed or get people to subscribe just because the NFL is such a pull. But
and if Trav and Tay make it,
and there's
the Chiefs are going to be on.
Yeah, they're going to have the Chiefs factor, so I'm sure there will be a bunch of people who sign up just for like that game out of loyalty or whatever, support. But I can't help but think when you're reading all that off of just like how expensive it is to watch sports and be an NFL fan these days.
Yeah,
that you have to have. Now, granted, if you don't play fantasy football and don't have to watch it all the time, then it's not. That big of a deal. You don't have to have Netflix to have those games, but
too, I can't remember who did this, but it was a really interesting like breakdown of how much it would cost. I think I sent this to you guys.
Yeah, they included the Sunday ticket.
The Sunday ticket, but
because otherwise it's not $800 something dollars.
But if you wanted to watch every single NFL game, if you wanted to watch every single NFL game, it would be $800 a year.
Yes.
Now, like there are people like I had the Sunday ticket for years because it was quite often the DirecTV would give it to me for free when I'd call up and be like, you bastards are costing too much. And they'd be like, look, take the Sunday ticket for free. Don't leave us. Please don't leave us. It was a very abusive relationship I had with DirecTV. And then AT&T bought them and went out for revenge on that. I made a lot of empty threats. I had emotional affairs with other services, all those things. And then I would threaten them till I was going to leave. I was really going to leave this time. And then I didn't do that until they actually did lose the Sunday ticket. So, but then it like I had no power anymore. My bill just kept going up, and I never got any free stuff anymore. So,
first world problems.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I know it's like $800. I don't know if this is the original tweet or not, but you need Peacock. That's $6 a month. Netflix $7 a month. Prime $9 a month or whatever. You got the different tiers there. ESPN Plus, it's $11 a month. YouTube TV, it's like $73. Sunday ticket, $350. So all that adds up to like around $850. And so fantasy owners that are like hardcore, I'm sure they'll want that. More casual fans won't need all of that. You don't like, honestly, if I didn't see the Amazon games, I would have been A-okay.
I mean, they're not really that great.
They're not really that great. I always would go home if I was free on Thursday and I would turn them on and they would just be there either most of the time is background because honestly the games were not great. They really weren't. The matchups weren't all that enticing, and the games themselves were not all that great. But if you're somebody like my brother-in-law who's like all over it, then he's going to end up spending about $800 and something to watch all the NFL games this year.
Yeah, I only have one TV in my living room, so it kind of makes it. Now with YouTube TV, now you can do the 4 screens and pick the ones.
Here's 2 more.
Yeah. So but also I have to pay attention to a wife, so I try to in
That's
football season.
That's the most expensive investment of all of them, actually.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right.
$850, nothing.
Yeah. And part of that also, like, I made the decision this year where, if we can just, like, watch the red zone, we're all right,
Compromise. That's
nice. The Cowboy, like, I don't ever have to worry about living here and not seeing a Cowboys game. I don't. Yeah. So there's no need for it like I do. When the Red Sox don't enrage me, I usually do buy a Red Sox package from MLB so I can watch most of the Red Sox games. Right now, they're just okay phase, and I can't deal with that. But in fake sports news, Netflix has ordered Happy Gilmore 2, which I don't know is a good idea, bad idea, or a medium idea. I love the original Happy Gilmore movie. I think it's hilarious. Most of the funniest parts of that movie, though, Carl Weathers has recently passed away.
Bob
Barker's passed away. I know that people may not recognize the name, but you'd recognize the face. And that's Joe Flaherty, who was a comedian and actor forever. He was on SCTV. He was the "Hey Gilmore, you suck" guy in the movie. He's recently passed away. So they're gonna have like creative ways to take up for the space that's there. Maybe they can get our buddy Lee Trevino, who's been on the show a couple times back. Maybe they can get him back in. I liked him shaking his head. I think the idea of a senior tour Happy Gilmore and Shooter McGavin to me is funny.
I'm thinking Happy's in the in Live. He's making $750 million and just
something like that. I mean, there's storylines that you could do with it, but again, Adam Sandler, who I love, and is far more talented actor than the mainstream world gives him credit for. Just some of these I think they have too much fun making them because he's such a relaxed dude, and they don't drill down in the details because they don't want it to be Francis Ford Coppola making Apocalypse Now, where it drove him crazy. And so, we'll see. Not everything. Comedies are really hard to make sequels to. They're really hard because a good comedy doesn't really need a follow-up unless the story is someone who's going to naturally have multiple adventures. That's why, like, the best movies are the ones where, like, you can create new stories out of, like, the ones to see, like Godfather 2. Like, this is definitely going to be a continuing saga. There's going to be bigger problems once the first one ends, right? There's going to be stories to tell. And then sometimes, like, The Hangover should have had one movie and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, this is Happy Gilmore, not The Godfather.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but that's why I'm saying, like,
I mean, he's got a contract, I guess, to fill out a certain amount of movies, and you only have so many ideas. So I enjoyed the first one when I was like 12 years old, and that was great then, and that was great for that time period. I have no desire whatsoever to see this movie. Like, I'll probably see it at some point, but I'm not like this news does nothing to move me one way or the other. But, there's a lot of Sandler fans, and maybe it'll be great. I don't know. I know he's been very hit or miss on some of his offerings, like for every what was the Jules movie? The
Uncut Jewels?
Yeah, Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
For all the acclaim for that, I know there's like 3 others that are absolute garbage. So, I mean, I like Sandler, but his movies are hit or miss, and so we'll see. I don't have high hopes this is going to be like an award winner, but maybe it'll be a good little Netflix flick. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll tell you, he did one with his daughters called "You Are So Not Coming to My Bat Mitzvah." That was really funny. It was really cute, really funny movie, and it's a good one to watch with the wife. But like Hustle was really good. Hustle, I think you would like. Hustle was where he played a basketball scout. Anthony Edwards is in the movie. It's really, really well done. But again, there's not a lot of big time winners lately, but he doesn't care because he's having a good time. So respect to Adam Sandler. We'll take a break right here. When we come back at 5 o'clock, and yes, UT Parking, I agree with you. Uncut Gems was great. That's the most tense I've ever been watching a movie because it doesn't stop. Like the movie starts and goes, and it feels like it's one scene. Like even though he's in different things, like it just feels like the movie's all just one scene of him trying to get through this week of his life.
Yeah.
And Kevin Garnett's in it and was surprisingly good. So when we come back, we'll have a couple things, and we're awaiting the arrival of David Kay from Baylor Athletics, and we'll talk about his new position as the general manager and in charge of all things NIL for the Bears. This is 365 Sports.
TexasBeefHouse.com marketing director had an incredible online auction, live auction, of course, in the month of April. There'll be another one just around the corner. But May, people start to get out on the grills. The weather's cleared up. You got a special throughout and some ideas for the month of May.
So May, we consider May, June, and July as grilling month. We've got our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular Wagyu hamburger patties, our garlic links. Two things that people aren't usually familiar with are our flap steak and flank steak. Those are a large piece of meat that you can cut up and eat with a fajita, or a lot of people will just cut it up and eat like a normal steak. This is our favorite time of the year because it's the perfect weather to get outside and get that grill going.
In the end, did you guys have another great auction? Did it all go well?
We had another fun auction. We had Wagyu brisket at this auction. It was phenomenal. We had so many customers that were so excited. They've given us their feedback on Facebook. We've got a lot of exciting things coming with a new platform that we've got going called Bid on Beef that we'll be releasing in the next couple of months. We're really excited about what the future holds for us.
TexasBeefHouse.com. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids, premium grade East Texas beef from their pasture to your plate. They'll deliver it to you locally. They bring it directly to your door. Farm-raised Wagyu beef. May grilling month, May, June, and July, and there's not a better place to find what you want to put on the grill, whether it's hamburgers, flank, or flap steak. Samantha, there's always that code to get a discount.
Yes, absolutely. Use the code SICK'EM10, SICK'EM10, and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
TexasBeefHouse.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sick'em 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Welcome back. Next segment, we'll have David Kay, new general manager at Baylor. And look, it's a role that hasn't existed before because NIL is new and it's a new role for him. So it will be very, very interesting to hear kind of the things of what his new role is. And, he's kind of been shepherding a lot of this information anyway in his role as Associate of External Affairs. But just to fill the time real quick before DK gets here, Garrett, Joel Klatt, and of course On3 made this graphic, so thanks to On3 for doing that work for us. But his top 5 college football atmospheres, Garrett, I thought you would be interested in this because number 1 is real Death Valley.
Yes, it is.
Number 2 is Happy Valley. Number 3 is Alabama. Number 4 is Oregon. And number 5 is Clemson. Anybody that you got, like, if you take somebody out, who replaces them, which Clemson is what you and I like to call fake Death Valley, although it's still a raucous atmosphere and it's very, very hard to win there. They've not lost many games under Dabo Swinney at Clemson. But, Garrett, who would you take out, or are you fine with that top 5?
I would probably I might take out Alabama, honestly. I think you could make a case that if Rocky Top is rolling, you could make a case that Tennessee would be a better atmosphere than Alabama. If I had to choose one game at those, I'd go to a whiteout night game at Penn State. That would be my choice, though.
Right. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have personal experience here, so I think without that, it's hard to say for sure when you haven't been to some of these places. I mean, I think of Kyle Field whenever things are rocking for A&M. That's always one of the crowds you hear about being great. I think Texas here as of late, as they've been doing good. I mean, I guess anybody who's winning or has 100,000 plus is going to be loud. Oregon kind of surprises me, but again, never experienced it. But it's just kind of different compared to everything else based, pretty much on the eastern seaboard or close to it. They are tucked away off in the northwest, not by their lonesome, but certainly far away from everybody else listed on this list. So I always like the look of Autzen. I've never really considered their crowd to be a big deal though. The scenery looks cool, the setting's great, the stadium's nice, and all of that, the uniforms. But I never think of Oregon in massive crowds. Now again,
it's a smaller stadium for sure.
Yeah, it's not even. It's what is it even now? 60-something thousand. So yeah, it's not even one of the bigger stadiums. So normally when I think of big loud stadiums, I think of those that are normally in the SEC or the Big Ten that have 90 to 100 plus thousand, and Tennessee's certainly one that I thought would, be on here because for the longest they were like King B or Queen B of stadium sizes, and now others have added as well. But yeah, Tennessee is one that would normally jump out, and I guess Oregon is a bit of surprise because it's not the biggest. But if I went there, I'm sure I'd walk away feeling a little bit differently if they had the right game to watch.
Now I've been to 3 of these, and one of them I was very young. I went to LSU. I was really young, but I've been to LSU. I haven't been since I was drinking age. So. I'll still say, there's a night game at Death Valley to me is the premier college football, nutso experience.
Yeah, that's what I had to choose from. That's the one that I would choose as well. Yeah.
That's the Rolling Stones concert. That's the big deal. Right. Penn State Happy Valley Whiteout again at night. Garrett, I think, is great. Alabama, I've been to Alabama, and maybe it was just the game I went to was they blew out Texas A&M so terribly badly.
Right.
It was they absolutely shredded A&M, and it was the year after the next trip in to Alabama after the last time Johnny Football had beaten him there, and Kenny Hill, it essentially ended his A&M career. And I'm saying this and watching David K. smile about that. But it absolutely shredded that. So it was just a terrible game to watch. Even if I didn't have a dog in the hunt with my Aggie family there, it was just, by the second quarter, it was well, this is done. I wonder if there's a cool place to eat near our hotel in Birmingham. That was it. So I probably got robbed of my Alabama experience by the fact that A&M might as well have not been there at all. Oregon, never been to. Clemson I went to when I was in college. And it was raucous. They weren't as good back then, but they were in it. So I'm not going to take them out of it. I will say, and this is going to shock you both, but the Swamp, when they are going,
that doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah, but then I would say it hops. It's a very intimidating place to be. Now they need to maybe throw another coat of paint on it and all that.
The Swamp before Death Valley was Death Valley, in my opinion, growing up. The Swamp was the site, and then Death Valley came along a few years later. From my standpoint, as a non-Florida LSU SEC fan, but the Swamp had a reputation for sure in the '90s. That it's just. It's about everything goes back to winning, man. All of it. All of it goes back to winning. Atmospheres, recruiting, attention from the media, all that. It all goes back to the same thing.
Yeah. What I will say, I think there are places that the atmosphere is good most of the time, but like because their fans are so used to winning, like I'll say that about Doak Campbell. It's great. I would recommend anybody go see a game there. But if you happen to go see a game where it's them versus a team that everybody thinks they should beat no matter what, and it's not going well, the atmosphere is bad because they're spoiled. We're spoiled. So like you get that kind of like, oh, I can't believe this is going on. Like, it's what Texas really should be, but Texas has that same kind of a problem with like, oh, how are we losing to this piddly little team? How do we do that? And then the atmosphere sucks for a thing that should be good no matter what, you know? But that's just kind of how, like, when you get spoiled, Alabama was like that day, but of course, you know, that was probably why I got the bad day of it there. So anyway, we'll take a break right here. When we come back, David Kay sits in the throne right here, and we talk about his new job as the GM at Baylor Athletics. This is 365 Sports.
It is time to announce the 14th annual Academic All-Stars team right here on 365 Sports. Hi, this is David Smoak. Our 20 Academic All-Stars have an overall grade point average of 103.2. 5 members are headed to a military academy. There are 6 valedictorians and 2 salutatorians. Our 2024 Academic All-Stars team includes Ryder Bagley from Groesbeck, Chilton's Colton Bossy, West Cole Bryant, Casey Cavanaugh from Troy, Lorena's Emily Flores, Whitney's J.C. Green, Franklin's Sarah Heisler, Academy's Madeline Hammonds, Waco High's Alexis Hookham, Kate Humphreys from Clifton, Marshall Cobb of Midway, Temple's Claire Little, Salado's Case Majin, Houston Powers of Crawford and Thorndale's Emily Reeves, Landon Richardson of Lampasas, Milford Shimon Rogers Jr., Brady Schultz of Abbott, March Monty Swainer, and Avery Thaler from Fairfield. The 2024 Academic All-Stars team is brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, Westdale Asset Management, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ray Broker, Air Conditioning and Heating, HEB, Award Specialties, Healer Printing, Wolf Florist, Baylor Club, and the Waco Foundation. We will honor the 14th annual Academic All-Stars team at our annual banquet, Wednesday, May 15th at the Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium. We're proud to recognize these elite student athletes in Greater Central Texas, our 14th annual Academic All-Stars team, right here on 365 Sports.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America. 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome back. David Kay, Baylor general manager, which there's never been. You're the first general manager.
Well, it's NIL general manager.
NIL general manager,
yes,
but yes.
First. We are building the ship as it flies or as it sails or however you want to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations on the new gig. You've been at Baylor a very long time. And you've
almost 15 years. Yeah.
And you have worn a lot of different hats along the way. This one, though, is completely new. In that, this is a new world. And you were kind of doing all this stuff anyway, right?
Yeah, I really got involved in NIL around January of 23. And this has evolved. And so I've already been in this role as far as kind of managing the relations with the collective and the NIL Advisory Council and having conversations with athletes. That really picked up in November when our NIL Advisory Council said we're going to change the way we do football. It was, hey, if we're going to retain some guys, we need to change our model. And you had to have one-on-one conversations at that point with every player who could return. And so that's where this really evolved from. And that's where the role really grew, was out of that, was, hey, we're allowed to present you and make you aware of opportunities that are available to you. We can't negotiate them. We can't make them happen, but we can help with the facilitation and we can make you aware of them. And so that's what happened out of that, was just a lot of meetings with football players, football student athletes about what opportunities were going to be available to them the next year. And then that's morphed, and now it's through other sports as well.
Kind of have a two-part question. I mean, first of all, were you interested in NIL from the beginning, or is this something like it's just part of the job, like this is what I do, this is what you do? Because I would imagine there's got to be some part of you that's intrigued by just the ins and outs of it and getting to learn that. So how much of that was, were you just sort of interested in the idea of NIL and learning more about it and fleshing that out?
Yeah, I think I was always interested in it. It's not something that I ever went and said, hey, I want to be involved in NIL. It just kind of came about it that they needed someone to do it at a certain point, and I had some availability to do it. And so that just really was like, hey, we'd like you to step in and help with this. And it worked out really well, and things started trending in the right direction, and then it became my responsibility. So I'm excited about it. I love that every day is different. Things change, and you form a game plan, and then the next week some new guidance comes out from the NCAA and you have to shift. That's really exciting to me about you don't know what each day is going to look like. It's good and bad, but I really enjoying that part of it. And I enjoy trying to communicate with athletes, and sometimes you deal with agents even, but just having open communication where people leave feeling like, hey, they were really transparent. I understand it at Baylor better than anywhere else. When I visit with recruits, that's up front. I say, I want you to leave here feeling like we were more transparent with you about the way we do NIL than anywhere else, and that you don't have any questions left when you leave. Because there's so much ambiguity in the space, and people don't know how it all works.
Yeah, we'll probably get into some of that ambiguity and all of that. But, yeah, I mean, if you clearly like challenges, so this is a challenge, and that excites you more so than interest in NIL specifically, yeah.
Well, and I am interested in NIL. I want to be clear on that. But, for 13 years, I was a sports information director, and that was a little more redundant. I really enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed the relationships, especially with the media. But this has been kind of different in that, hey, I had to come in and kind of learn this on the fly and adapt every day different approaches. And with communications as a sports information director, there's not much innovation there.
Right.
So I've really enjoyed that part of it, trying to get everything organized, trying to be strategic, and just working with our NIL Advisory Council. And I can't say enough good things about John Passavant, the CEO of GXG. We talk every day, multiple times. He's been a tremendous partner in the space.
And that's a big deal, because I think early on that there were some just you go around the country and there were some good NIL collectives that had a good idea of how they're going to do things, and some I think that were kind of already collectives that just got to come into the light and take the dark curtains off their windows, so to speak, and then there were some that were just a bunch of drunken rich guys. They're like, let's see who we can get. Let's go. Like, he'll tell the coach, like, you hear it, any money you want, All right, another scotch. Just tell us how to write the check, which is not really, like, I'm sure it's great for the guy who gets the money, except it's not really productive for either side in that you're not really doing anything. But having an NIL collective that knows what it's doing and obviously, went through a first year or so of like, we're just inventing this right now, but to see them kind of grow in the space, what have you seen from, the side of like GXG at the beginning and now like how it's morphed into with what they've been able to figure out? Like, because again, there was no playbook for this at all.
Well, and one big thing that changed was guidance changed to where we could have more involvement with them. Like, really the game changer was when the NCAA said you can help with fundraising. Like, that makes all the difference. And I want to shout out our university advancement, Greg Davis, Nick Florence, Jake Baskin, Gina French, Toby Baldwin, Barnett. Like, they've been incredible in visiting with our donors and helping to get funding into GXG because we are able to go to them and say, we'd like you to give to GXG. And so that was the real game changer with NIL. So I know people look at Baylor NIL and say, maybe we were a little slow to start. I think we were very intentional. We were conservative. We wanted to be sure we were doing it the right way. And I think that's paid off. I think, we talk about the ambiguity and it doesn't behoove us to share all of our information publicly. And I know that's not what people want to hear, but, if people hear that Baylor football has X amount in NIL or Baylor basketball has X amount in NIL, well, coaches we're competing against are going to go to their donors and their athletic directors and their fundraisers and say, if I'm going to compete with Baylor, I need that. And so we're better off with that information not being out there. It gives us a competitive advantage if we're doing more than other collectives. It doesn't really have much benefit other than just people are curious. And so I would say, our advisory council knows how much everything is going on. The collective knows. And so people who want to have those conversations with them can. But we have been very intentional about not making a huge deal about, hey, these numbers are out there and this is what it is.
You can call that the sliced bread rule.
Yeah, well, and listen, we've talked to people there who said that whole thing was completely made up.
But again, I think the SEC reacted as a whole to that message board post from Sliced Bread as like, and they, Nick Saban immediately went on like, hey, they spent all this money in there, and he didn't care that it didn't matter to him in talking to that donor group, it wasn't true. And I'm not trying to impeach his credibility, but like, he had to get out in front of that somehow and be like, look, if this is even close to true, you guys have to step up. And then you even have to that was even at the time where you had to pretend like NIL is real, but it's not a thing, that was the real ambiguity right there where you guys had to acknowledge it but pretend like you weren't involved.
And that was the hardest part was like, at the end of the day, people know this is the Baylor collective, right? Mm-hmm. So their reputation really is our reputation. Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure, and that's where the alignment's been so important. Like, you've seen some of these things at other schools. I won't name any names, but where
you go ahead and name names you want to.
You've seen some things where it gets ugly, where a kid is completely taken advantage of, misled, and it reflects really poorly on the school. So that's where it's like, it's been so great to have a relationship with GXG where we know what they're doing, we're aligned, and they're not doing anything crazy that's going to embarrass Baylor.
How does the sort of process work now? We hear, just the hyperbole is like an athlete just walks in and demands $1 million, right? It's not that simple, obviously. How would you describe the process, especially with your involvement now, and how all of that sort of works hand in hand?
So, I've seen a lot of people upset, and I've talked to some people upset about, like, they should be choosing to come to Baylor because it's world-class education and great and all those things are true. But I would describe it the same way as anyone seeking an athletic or an academic scholarship. Like, when you're making your decision what college to go to, you're going to know all the information as far as what the finances are of it. And so why shouldn't student athletes be able to know what NIL is available to you if you go to a certain school? I actually ended up on a call with a congressman a few months ago where I was saying it would really help us if there was federal legislation that allowed collectives to make offers to recruits in writing during their visits, because what was happening is that collectives would just throw out numbers. And so we'd have a kid come in on a visit and, we'd talk about NIL and they'd say, yeah, I was at this collective and they said they could get me $100,000. And you say, okay, well, is that $100,000 right when you get there? Is that $100,000 over your 4-year career? Is that an exclusive deal or a non-exclusive deal? Meaning If it's an exclusive deal, any other NIL deals you do pay back the collective, and that's the way some do it. And they didn't have any of those answers. And it's just unfair to the kid because it's just a crazy number. So fortunately, that was something nice that happened with one of the lawsuits, is that the collectives can provide term sheets to recruits and show them what would be available to them. And so that's the way it works. The NIL Advisory Council works with the collective. They set an amount, they put together a term sheet, and it gets shown to a recruit when they're on their visit. And they know, if I come to Baylor, this is what's available to me. And it's very transparent. It's very above board. It's not the craziness of, oh, well, I need $1 million or I'm not coming. I mean, honestly, that's not the kind of kid we want. And every recruit conversation I have, we don't want NIL to be the reason you don't come here. We want to make sure that you're a great fit for Baylor and Baylor's a great fit for you and you fit the team. And at the end of the day, if all those things align, we don't want NIL to be a reason you don't come here. But if you're only coming here because of NIL, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
I think everybody who does that, we got to go, okay, this kid says I'm a quarterback, I'm worth $2 million because, Bryce Young was worth $2 million. You're like, all right, well, best of luck. I'm sure somebody's out there desperate enough for you, but at the end of it, you're probably not going to win with kids like again, you're also not going to be able to budget like that because then what are you doing? You're going back like, oh, well, this kid needs $2 million. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, defensive tackles are going for $1.5 million. So we got to make sure that we get the $1.5 million defensive tackles and not the 300,000 defensive tackles that are probably just as good.
And that's where I think eventually this hopefully comes in house in some form. And there are some kind of collectively bargained caps or whatever it is, where you do have a finite number and you say, okay, you could treat it almost like I hate to use the word pro because it is still college, but almost like a pro model of, okay, we have to decide how much do we want to allot to the quarterback room or the wide receiver room and work from there. And right now, because it's, everyone's playing with ambiguous numbers and everyone thinks we could just go raise more money, it's really hard to figure that kind of thing out. So that's been a real challenge. And so that's kind of where I come in, is communicating between the coaches and the collective and making sure we're all on the same page and making sure we're thinking around the corner about, okay, if the collective does this for this student athlete, what are the ripple effects of that? Mm-hmm. Because if you think that these guys aren't going to occasionally talk and share numbers, like, you're setting yourself up again for failure. Like, you have to accept that there's going to be some conversation. Now, all of our collective contracts that GXG does, they all have confidentiality clauses in there. But you'd be pretty naive to think that nothing ever gets shared.
Well, especially for a 20-year-old kid.
Like 17, 18-year-old.
Yeah, 17-year-old. Yeah.
And that's part of the conversation we have with them, though, is like, this is the business side of it now. Mm-hmm. It is. I don't go around the hallway asking my coworkers how much they're earning, and you shouldn't be doing that either. We have to treat it a little bit like a business on this side of it.
Yeah, for sure. What's it like I remember, I guess it was maybe Sam Kahn's article here recently when he talked about Dave Aranda. There was an anecdote about him, like, I got to go learn about NIL, and I guess they were in passing.
He's going to the Cardinals, right?
Yeah, it was
like how to build a roster.
Yeah, he was going to meet with the Cardinals. It was at Big 12 meetings, I guess that's what it was. And Dave was on his way out because he had to go meet with some Cardinals front office people to figure out how salaries work and salary caps and things like that. What are those conversations like right now with coaches, and just how interesting is that to be in that space, knowing that's not really what they signed up for, but that's part of the job now?
I think any coach would tell you that's part of the job now. Yeah. And so everyone trying to learn on the fly a little bit, but you also have to stay compliant. Like, coaches can't set budgets and say, I want to use this much on this player. Like, that's against the rules.
Yeah, so could you kind of, I wouldn't have thought about that. So you got to explain what they're allowed to be a part of and what they're not allowed to be a part of.
That's where you just kind of have to talk in hypotheticals and, hey, I've heard quarterback recruits, 4-star quarterback recruits are getting offers for this much. We share that information. Gotcha. Hey, we've heard this is what's happening. But you can't get into specifics on a particular student athlete and say, this student athlete needs this much to come here. Like, that's where it's really a challenge. And I think eventually that'll get cleared up and it'll be more straightforward and more just, this is your budget, this is what you're working with. And then the coaches do get to decide at that point. When that eventually comes in-house, I think coaches will essentially have a general manager on each sport who's kind of allocating and saying, okay, this is how much we want to allot. And, maybe then the numbers become more public, and I think numbers becoming more public might actually rein some of this stuff in because, you deal with people who are incentivized to inflate numbers.
Oh, yeah.
There was something that came out on social media a few days ago where it was, lined up $2 million of NIL deals. Well, that doesn't mean that the collective is giving $2 million. I'm not saying that couldn't be the case, but that could mean a lot of other things.
Well, the agent he's definitely that guy has an agent, right? So like his agent can make all kind of deals that he wants, and the collective may only be responsible for part of that. I think the other thing that comes in, if you're a collective and you've got donors giving, and they find out that like this guy is getting $2 million, well, a lot of my donors be like, well, if we're paying him $2 million and we lose in the first round of the tournament, I'm going to not maybe do that because I don't think it's worth it anymore. And then that hurts everything else, right?
Yeah, you really don't want people looking at dollar signs out there.
Yeah.
Like that's a challenge. But yeah, I think it's just best in general if the donors aren't sitting there thinking my money is going to that athlete. That's not the intent of it. That's not the way it should be. I would hope that if nothing else, they've learned that through our advisory council and through John at GXG, like they're being very intentional about how they do everything. And you're not seeing any craziness of Baylor paid a guy, not Baylor, GXG paid a guy $100,000 and a week later he was in the transfer portal. Like they're being very intentional about that. And there are ways to be strategic. You know, I have to be careful how much I share because we don't want to give up anything that gives our collective or Baylor a competitive advantage. But there are ways to be intentional about that. But there's also the challenge of the NCAA rules, which literally this morning I sat down with our compliance office and went over some new guidance that came out. So you have to be adaptable, and just because something is permissible today doesn't mean it will tomorrow. And you also have to think through, like that's where coaches preparing for the day when coaches do get to decide who gets how much.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with what the rules are. Like in some cases there are no rules, and state by state, and it's all just very confusing of where things kind of fall. So yeah, you almost have to have like a law, degree on the side. Kind of like when we talk about all these various issues now, there's just so many different components to it. So can you just, I guess, get into sort of for folks who see the announcement about, you and the promotion and the others that are going to be involved in this, it's just sort of what all this means and how that blossoms out this part of the athletic department and therefore, benefits athletics overall.
Yeah, this is really, I think, the start of a larger unit, but we've hired Haneen Rashwan. She was assistant director of NIL at Oklahoma State. She did a phenomenal job there. She's only 1 year out of college, but she was on their brand squad and was the president of it while she was a senior in their business school, and they really built comprehensive NIL programming for their student athletes. And what I mean by that is like helping to teach them how to go and negotiate with brands to get deals. How to build their brand on social media to make themselves more valuable, all of that. So those are sort of the lines that have been drawn, and obviously there's crossover, but Haneen is going to really work on building out our programming.
Can she come here? Teach me about TikTok?
We're going to keep her plenty busy, okay? But yeah, so she's going to handle the NIL programming side of it, and then I'll handle the recruit visits, talking to coaches, talking to the advisory council, talking to John Passavant on a daily basis, all those kind of things. So that's sort of the general parameters, but there's lots of crossover. And I'd be naive to sit here and tell you I know exactly where this is going. Like things are changing rapidly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there will eventually be more members of a staff on an NIL staff. And if you're not building out an NIL unit, you're kind of putting yourself behind for when that day comes.
Is this eventually going to be good for sports not called football and basketball? I mean, it already kind of is in that, especially like for baseball and softball. I mean, you and I were talking before about trading cards. That's a sport that already lends itself to it, and that's I think was for baseball athletes is probably going to be even a more attractive thing too. I talking to Mitch Thompson about like where you have to be in the NL world in a non-revenue sport in like schools that happen to have like Georgia has like a group of 5 baseball players that turn out to be best friends and all have a bunch of money. And they're like, okay, well, football's taken care of. Mm-hmm. I can only worry about baseball. If you don't happen to be one of those schools, then like you're kind of behind the 8 ball. But with House versus NCAA coming down and maybe some scholarship things changing and being able to offer full scholarships to sports that have never had them, or at least not in modern memory, which has always been the dumbest rule to me in the world. I don't know how you get by in any sport with 11 scholarships on a team that has 30 people on it.
Got that extra 0.7 in there too. Don't forget about the
0.7. Yeah. Those books for those kids that parents are in a slightly higher tax bracket but still probably feeling it. Are those things going to could potentially be better? That they'll have NIL opportunities and.
I think there's no doubt that NIL is better for student athletes. Mm-hmm. Like it is in general, it's not making anything worse for anyone on the student athlete side. I think equivalency sports, it can help with covering the cost of tuition. Mm-hmm. Hopefully there's a time I know that it causes all kinds of challenges, and the financial times are getting really complicated. But I think there's a day coming where there's full scholarships possibly. And then, the trading cards is like the coolest thing. We just met with On It. They're doing the baseball and softball ones, about to get those to market. They're getting ahead of doing the football ones for next year. So I think those may be hitting the market in June or July. So that's a really cool thing. Like, we visit with recruits and show them the On It deal and say, this would have been cool just to be in a trading card set before. Now you get compensated for it. So you're getting royalties in the hundreds. And then if they choose you to do an autograph signing of it, you can make 4 figures on those. So I think there's tons of opportunity there. There's going to be things that grow especially as things like the trading cards are successful. That'll lead to more opportunities. So would love for our fans to continue supporting those kind of things, because it gets money into our athletes' pockets, which is a good thing. Gets them a really cool product, and then it opens more opportunities down the road. But yeah, some of the coolest NIL deals we've had have been like through acrobatics and tumbling. So that's what I love about NIL, is that it's non-discriminatory. Anyone can get an NIL deal. It's about building your brand and getting and pursuing opportunities. There's a football player came to me and said he wants help getting a deal at the place he goes to get his dog washed. So just help them a little bit with how you do that kind of thing. But
shoot a commercial and we
helped Dariana Littlepage Buggs with her raid deal. Like, that was the coolest one I think we've done.
Now you got the double whammy with Jeremy Roach.
We'll be talking grade again. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, I bet so. Yeah.
But again, a little bit of a fine line. Like, we can't negotiate on their behalf, but we can help facilitate.
Yeah.
And so we helped Buggs a little bit with how you would negotiate something like that if you were wanting to negotiate it. Some athletes just choose to take the NIL deal that's offered to them. Some want to negotiate it, but it's great business skills for them to learn, whether they're using it for NIL or not. It's just for the long term a really good thing.
I haven't heard you mention parents yet in this. And I'm very curious on there. Like, there's crazy helicopter parents out there for even the sweetest of kids, like, in the world. And I think that's probably complicated NIL world a little bit, or helicopter salespeople who've been kind of contracted to the family. But how have parents responded to this? Like, when you have a conversation with a parent, like, what is the discussion like?
It varies. I had a football recruit visit maybe a couple weeks ago, and the mom, it was almost refreshing. She was like, I just don't want to hear any of this. Like, this feels weird to me. And so I have to kind of enforce, like, no, this is legal. This is permissible. And this is just taking advantage of an opportunity that's available to you. So there's that. And then there's others who, see crazy things and just believe everything they hear. And that's what I'd tell anybody, is like, don't believe everything you hear. There's people who are incentivized to lie.
Yeah.
And so, there's a little bit of a, hey, talk. I don't want to say talk in some sense, but explaining the reality of the situation to them. But really the goal in those NIL meetings, when the parents are in there with the recruits, is everyone feel good about it. That, hey, we understand how this works. And, if someone comes in with crazy ideas, well, hopefully we can explain the situation a little better to them and give them a little bit of the actual facts behind it instead of the wild speculation they hear. And honestly, that's been the case. Like, I can't really remember anywhere I left going, that parent was crazy. They have no idea. Most of the people, I think, they have enough people around them that have told them some truths.
So, looking forward, obviously you'd love some sort of intervention. You'd love for the school to be directly involved, right? Is that number one? If you had the magic wand, David K., and you could say, I have the power to make NIL the best, most streamlined, healthy for all involved, thing that it can be, where do you start, and what would you like to see possibly happen over the next few years to make this a better process for everybody?
Well, I'll start by saying whatever I throw out there is probably not going to happen.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
I think about this on an almost daily basis, all the different ways to try to solve something like this. I think in an ideal world, student athletes are compensated for the marketing value they bring to the university, right? And if there's a way to do that where it's a contract and there's basically a budget for each team, and I think each team should have a different budget. It shouldn't be equal because different sports bring different marketing value.
And you have that for everything else, right? Budgets for all sorts of other things. So.
Yeah, the science department might get more than English. That's kind of how things work. Yeah.
It's capitalism.
Yeah.
And so
USA.
So I think that's one thing, is just ideally it comes in-house to where the schools are funding it through donations. But in that way, donations that came in, the schools could give some kind of benefit for it. That's one of the biggest challenges in NIL right now is that the school can't give any benefit. We can go to our donors and say, we'd love for you to give to GXG, but we cannot provide you any benefit for doing that. So coming in-house, that would change. And so then you could almost tie it to seating. You could tie it to the TV contracts. Lots of different ways to make that work. So I'd really personally, and I want to be clear, my personal opinion, not Baylor's opinion, I would love to see it come in-house to where you knew there was this budget backstop. You had a budget you could work with, and you knew that money was going to be there. Whereas right now, that's a challenge. Now, we're going to make sure that GXG has what they need through going out to our donors and helping fundraise, but not everyone's able to do that. So I'd love to see it come in-house that way, and then you're able to work within the constraints of a budget, and everyone knows what the budget is, and student-athletes understand, okay, I'm getting this percentage of the budget, and this is what is required of me to get that. And this is what would lead to my contract being terminated. This is what would lead to it being fulfilled. Straightforward, a little more like, I don't want to say employment, but basically compensated for the marketing you bring.
And there's a way to do that. There is a way. And I think most athletes wouldn't want to be employees. In the classic sense of employment, like that I don't, and clearly the universities don't want that either, because that's a whole new ball of wax. But
think about what that would do to Baylor University having to support 550-ish more employees. I mean, that creates all kinds of challenges. And then you've got taxable benefits. Now, obviously, the gear you get to play in a game, that's for a working purpose if it's working. You're not getting taxed on that. But having to figure out what's taxable, what's not, there's lots of hurdles there. So I think there is a middle ground that's probably not employment. It's a little short of that. Maybe it's collectively bargained. I don't know. There's a way to do it, and I trust that there's people working on it daily trying to find the right mix.
If there is that in-house and then the structure, then that allows maybe NIL, and again, this would not be a perfect system too.
Yeah.
To be when you facilitate an NIL deal, okay, we have this budget. Now we're going to go talk to David, and he's going to tell you about, here are the, availabilities to you. Here's who you talk to. They'll help you out. These are, this is our, I know you do this anyway. You have NCAA qualified agents that come in and talk to players that are draft eligible. And these are the agents that you should consider. And, here's a list of if this guy's called, he doesn't have your best interest at heart, those kind of things that you do to kind of protect them, as opposed to what NIL can be most places, which is let's just make sure that we get this kid the most money so that he comes here and not to the people we don't want him to go to.
And that's kind of one of the things that's a little bit tough right now is that, student athletes can have marketing agents. Well, in general, marketing contracts can provide about 20% to the agent as a facilitation fee. And yet pro contracts are 3 to 5%. And so, when I've visited with people who don't have an agent, I try to advise them on, hey, if an agent is trying to take 20% of your deal with your collective, they might be taking advantage of you.
Yeah.
That seems a little ridiculous when they maybe didn't even have a hand in getting you that deal. So that's one thing. I'm I'd love to see it get more professionalized that way. I want to be clear. I'm not advocating for pro sports, but I'd like to see it professionalized in the manner that's done, and just a little more above board as far as not letting student athletes who've never dealt with this be taken advantage of. And that's another thing I find with parents is just a lot of them. It's just this is crazy to me. I've never heard any of this. It seems so weird that student athletes would be able to earn compensation now. And that'll change over time. People will get more and more used to it, but
I think a lot of people also don't know how much money is in. They hear it, but I think the cat got out of the bag when a coach made $10 million, or when that was going up, you're wait a minute, hold on, this has changed a little bit, and then the argument changes because then it couldn't be, well, there's no money in the budget for this, and well, there's money in the budget for this guy. That's just one guy, but they still don't know, you have to explain kind of the math of yes, there's a lot of money available to you, and this is why, and now it's legal, and because times have changed, right?
Yeah, and I mean, the TV contracts are really where college sports changed dramatically. You can look back at that and say when the TV money grew is when things really shifted. And so, listen, I understand there's people who still appreciate the old model of college sports where it was strictly for the love of the game and all of that. I can understand that. But what I would say to people is you don't have to like it. But if you don't have competitive NIL, then probably need to accept that you're not going to have competitive teams. Because I think if any of us were honest, if you were considering two different options and one was going to pay you and another wasn't, I mean,
yeah,
we all want to be paid for the work we do. I get paid for the work I do. So I think that's been a change, and I think people are getting more and more used to that of we need to have competitive NIL if we want to field competitive teams. And it's best for Baylor athletics to have competitive NIL because we need Baylor to be good. And it brings tons of value to the university, and it's uncertain times in college athletics. Like, we need to be competitive. And Baylor being competitive in sports just allows us to shine our light nationally, globally. It's, Jeremy Fudge, I'll listen to him talk about why it's important for Baylor athletics to be successful all day long because he just does such an amazing job explaining why it's good for the kingdom for Baylor athletics to be good at sports.
Was that a problem at Baylor before? Like I would say before, like 15, 20 years ago, where I think there was some leadership or people that were like higher up donors that just didn't care as much because it had been a bit of a not successful time for athletics. And they're just like, well, it's not that important for this. Like, do those things. I mean, Coach Taft was, famously says about like how hard it was to get a real weight room, for his team back in the day. And that's probably not exclusive to Baylor, but
I'd have a little bit of a hard time speaking to that. I mean, I came back to Baylor full time in 2009. That was kind of the start of the upswing.
Yeah.
Not to say, I mean, we won national championships in 2005. Okay, so there were national championships being won before that, but. I think there's probably people back then who didn't realize the value of being competitive and how much it could do. But I also think times have changed as well. Like back in 2005, some of our football games weren't on TV.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just things have changed so much to where being successful is that much more valuable. Whereas, in the really dark years, like, listen, when I was a student at Baylor, we rushed the field 3 times in my first 3 years, and those were our 3 Big 12 wins. Like, it was rough. So I think there's probably a time where people maybe didn't appreciate how much we needed to be competitive. Like I remember when we got the on-campus practice facility built, that was a game changer.
Yeah.
And now we're building a new one right outside of it. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot rambling, but I think there's an argument that people didn't understand how valuable it was back then. But I also think it's easy to say now.
Yeah.
When we weren't in those conversations.
Yeah, you've tasted it now, so now it's a different feeling than when you didn't really know what it tasted like before. Because I remember what the perception of Baylor was when I was growing up, and it was not great, as you well know. And to see how far it's come is just never would have thought that when I was younger to where it is now. And so its success breeds people wanting to be a part of that, and make sure that it continues. And so it's I still don't think that. And I don't blame them because they're younger, but I don't think they fully realize of just the journey this school has been on over the last couple decades plus.
Our fans have been through a lot.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm really excited about the men's basketball stuff. I still oversee the men's basketball program as a sport administrator.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
So I love that I get to keep that, at least for now. Who knows how long that'll last with the way NIL changes, but I hope I get to keep it. And I love that we have more Baylor staff members, more Baylor alums who are staff members now. And I'm really excited about that staff. And I think Baylor people are really the only ones who understand what it's been like.
Yeah.
If you've lived through it, it's hard to explain, not to go all Aggie on you, but if you haven't lived it, it's hard to explain. But I was laughing, Paul, when I came in, you were giving me a hard time for laughing. I think you were telling a Manziel story. I was actually laughing at that bootleg national championship jersey you got up on the wall there. You see that and you're like, wow, we did win a national championship in men's basketball. Like that was not fathomable. When I was a student at Baylor.
No, that's not bootleg. I took that right off of Davion Mitchell.
I don't know about that.
He gave that right to me. He said, "Paul, you've meant so much to me. I want you to have this. Obviously, this is the least valuable of all my jerseys." But it is like, I don't know. I don't even know where that came. Well, I mean,
I have a general idea.
Jack has. It was yeah. But
we need to get you an authentic one.
Hey, we'd love it. We'd love it. Absolutely.
So, David, the last thing for me, just obviously you feel good about where things are. I guess people just always want to kind of know what's next. So, just in terms of department, you guys getting on the ground running, and just kind of what are you expecting? What can people expect as far as all this goes?
Yeah, I think you can expect that NIL is going to continue to grow. We're going to look for more and more. sometimes use the term authentic NIL, like what people really thought NIL was intended to be, which is, trading cards, commercials, things like that. I think you're going to see more and more of that.
I think of the Kansas tight end when they beat Texas, and he gets the Applebee's. Yeah, like that was NIL, right?
R.I.P. Waco Applebee's.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that stuff's going to continue to grow. We're talking with Playfly, our multimedia rights partner, about essentially forming an NIL arm of Playfly Baylor Sports Properties here in Waco, focused on getting NIL deals. So we're talking with them about that. There's permissibility issues, and as things evolve with the NCAA, that'll open more and more opportunities like that.
Yeah, because that would maybe lead to some cross-promotional opportunities that you would have, to where I'm ex-athlete and here's the brand I'm representing, but also they're giving money to Baylor. And like right now, those things have to be mutually exclusive because of the perception. I don't know why they do. And again, it'd be a contracted thing if you did that, so the terms would be available for any oversight body to agree. But okay, well, nobody's getting screwed here. Everybody's fine. Those are the things I expect to see down the line that would, to me, would make sense for the NCAA to allow, because then it allows the university to also capitalize on those things and make it make sense.
Well, and you talk about, ways to generate extra revenue, because revenue is the name of the game. We have to generate more. And so, there's things like, wouldn't a fan be interested in purchasing the game-used ball from a huge basketball win? We could probably sell that if Playfly is part of it, and that money go toward NIL funding. Things like that. I think you're going to see more and more opportunities like that. You're going to see more authentic things like that. And part of, Playfly out right now is going out to local sponsors and getting deals done to promote their brands as part of Baylor events. Why can't student athletes be part of that? It only makes sense that the athletes playing in the game are helping to promote that. And,
look, if you had Soda Pop, it's the official soda of whatever it is, and you had, we'll just use Davion Mitchell because he's gone now, but if Davion Mitchell was still here and he could be a picture on the wall next to the, we've all been to multiple stadiums where I've seen one, it was a baseball stadium where literally, Anthony Rizzo was in Chicago, was reaching out, and the decal was him filling up a drink by Wrigley Field. That's something that benefits that athlete and benefits all the partners right there.
Those are win-win-win situations.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking for more and more of those, trying to just come up with creative solutions to give all of our student athletes opportunities, bring in more revenue for them, help us fund this beast that it's grown into, because the need isn't going away. We've got to be able to fund it. And so back to your question about a model, I'd love to see a model where, whether it's the revenue share, whatever that ends up at, or whatever it is, a model where everyone's playing on the same playing field. And this is the cap. This is what you can go to. You don't have to go to it, but let's be real. If you want to be competitive, you're going to need to go to that cap. Yeah. That would really help. So, I think you're going to see more and more as the rules get loosened and there's more clarity on what you're allowed to do. You've got different state laws you have to contend with. And so, I'm not super optimistic, personal opinion again, about federal legislation.
Yeah, me neither.
But we really need it, because you need something to oversee all these different state laws. And so I'm hopeful that, it's almost like daylight savings time is, I think, one thing that could unite both parties. I think most people would like to keep daylight savings time. I feel like there's somewhere here that people would like to keep college sports from getting completely ridiculous. And there's got to be a middle ground there that both sides can come together and say, this just makes sense for everyone. This benefits the student athletes. It benefits the schools. It benefits the fans. That's what we need to find. And, it may be after the election before that actually gets done. And we've got to work as if we're not going to get that. But hopefully that comes through and really helps us out.
I've just wondered why don't you just take the best, the greatest hits of all the laws that make sense, and then take out the stuff that doesn't make sense, and then make that your law. That to me should have been the NCAA's guidance on the first thing, is okay, what did Florida, Texas, and California do that made this that? Let's take that law and this is the deal, and build from that. But they didn't do that. They kind of were we don't understand.
Yeah,
I know this is an oversimplification, but at least it's a jumping off point.
I'd like to think everyone's well intended in everything we're trying to do here, and so there's things of everyone started with NIL can't be used as a recruiting inducement. They didn't want offers being sent out to recruits, and that's well intended. That seems very logical. Of we don't want it to be a bidding war for recruits, but then you have to adapt to the reality of it. Like that was happening. Okay, it was happening, and athletes were being taken advantage of because they were hearing some crazy number without any context behind it. And so I'm glad that the rule has changed now, where collectives can put terms together for a student athlete and explain the NIL deal available to them, because that's just what's fair. So I say that to say, like, it might sound logical and this is the best or this is the worst part of the law, but you also, sometimes the people making those decisions aren't on the ground dealing with the practical reality of it.
Sometimes, all the time. That's the other thing, is why they've had a bunch of hearings and people ask dumb questions at hearings, because they really don't know, because that's not their job. They have no idea, and they have a perception of what it is, and then you'll hear, like, the ridiculous things that come out of these things. You're like, well, that wasn't productive at all, and you're not getting anywhere.
It's funny if you've ever tried to explain the American college sports model to someone in Europe. They're like, what? Like they don't earn any income? It's like, no, it's a scholarship, and they're very well taken care of. Like student athletes compared to 10 years ago are so much better taken care of 20 years ago. I mean, I think back to like Shabazz Napier, and it's like things have changed so much. There's been so much deregulation, and that's honestly where a lot of the money has gone. Like people think, oh, the schools have all this money now they didn't have years ago. But a lot of it is going to student athletes through deregulation. And look, I get it. Like I'm not saying the student athletes don't deserve a greater share. I think they absolutely do. But it was funny when you tried to explain like the amateurism model of college sports, and they're like, but wait, you watch the team on TV and you root for them and you go to their games and you pay for the tickets, but the people playing the game don't make any money off
it? Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah. So
yeah. Well, DK, this has been a great 40 minutes or so of talking. Look, it's awesome. Like, these are things that we all, and the reason, we like to talk ball most of the time. That's what we do. That's what, look, you, as I'm sure, as an avid, media consumer yourself, I've known you for a long time, like to hear most of the time. But this is good because this is legitimately a field that none of us know a lot about. And I think I get more questions on NIL that I can't answer than anything I've had in my entire career. Like, where it's like, well, how's people like, oh, Baylor's NIL isn't good. I'm like, I don't think it's not good. I think it's fine. They're like, well, how do you know it's fine? I'm like, well, I just trust the people who told me it is, but I don't know how it works. So I can't really explain it to them and be like, oh, look, you're worrying about things that aren't really there. And that's why I was glad we were able to do this, because there's so much that you said that makes sense so much across the board, that should the fans that are watching us that are, across the country, their collectives probably operate similarly to what you guys are doing, or, I'm sure there's some consistency and some wild differences depending on who you are, but what's going on, I think, is a mystery to many people.
Yeah. And I want to be aware of that. Like, I wish that it didn't have to be that way, or that, I guess it doesn't have to be that way, but I understand people being frustrated with not knowing exactly how it works. And so, like, I'll tell anybody, like, my phone number is available for anyone to see online, 254-709-5147. Like, call me, text me. It's usually easier if you text. I get a lot of unknown number calls that I don't answer. So shoot me a text, and tell me you're going to call. But I'm available to answer questions. Okay, there's going to be times I can't answer, or we just choose not to disclose some information. But if I can, I will, and I'll try to explain it the best I can. But yeah, it's just I hate that part of it. I wish that everyone understood it and everyone was on the same page. But again, I understand, like, competitively.
I get it. Like, it's kind of like there's some things in the government that need to be secret. There's some things that don't. And then, like, those things that don't make sense is like, why was this a secret in the first place? And I think that's the way I think a lot of people feel about NIL. It's like, like, I get, like, not wanting to say, like, especially now when there's no rules on the cap of things. Yeah. So, like, if school finds out that Baylor's spending this much and, like, well, we have that more money than that, let's make sure we put schools like that in the ground. Well, then that hurts you guys. So I understand that being secret. I think knowing about the process is a lot more illuminating to where it doesn't, like, it seems so haphazard the first couple of years of NIL.
I understand that. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people felt that way. I think we were very intentional to be intentional, for lack of a better word, about the way we approach things. And so it was maybe a little slow off the ground, but that was by design. And you evolve and you adapt and you're able to see mistakes other people are making and avoid those on the front end. But yeah, I hope that this is at least somewhat illuminating for people in the process and the way it works. And but at the same time, understand a month from now the process might be a little different because the rules are going to change.
Yeah.
But I can't say enough good things about our NIL Advisory Council, those high-level donors, Mac, Jovan, our fundraisers, all of the donors who help us to make this thing happen. I hope that they trust that we all have Baylor's best interest at heart. And you don't have to agree with every decision we make. I'm sure you don't. But we're trying like crazy to make Baylor competitive in everything.
DK, love you, buddy. Great to see you as always. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in like months.
I think, on the show in
the house
attic
in the house
back in the day. That was summer of 2020. So it's been a while.
Interesting times back then.
It was interesting times. Yeah, no, that was wild to go back there. I was looking at a picture the other day of like how it used to be set up there, and now I'm married and the house looks completely different because I have no control over that.
Well, that's for the best.
It's for the best. Like it wasn't, I realized I wasn't living in a Shangri-La back then. When we come back, the top 5 easiest schedules in the FBS. This is 365 Sports.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5, presented by Texas Beef House. Today, the top 5 easiest schedules in the P5. Yesterday, I did the toughest, so in order to, complete the cycle, I did the easiest. And Garrett, hop on the mic here real quick. Right. Just be after this, tell me how bad their fans are going to be to me when I say their schedule is easy.
Okay.
So when you hear the team, I'll ask you, Garrett, a scale of 1 to 10, how mad are they going to be that I said their schedule is easy?
Okay, that's fair.
That's what I want from you as the disembodied voice today. So number 5. All right. It's the Texas Longhorns. Now, look, I know Michigan is on this schedule. I know Oklahoma and Georgia are on this schedule. But for a first year in the SEC, they really got dealt a pretty good deal. Outside of that, Colorado State, UTSA, UL Monroe, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Florida, who had the toughest schedule, by the way, Arkansas, Kentucky, and A&M. I just think that, yes, it's a tough schedule. Texas should never be accused of easy scheduling, and this is not their doing. They just won the first-year SEC lottery where Oklahoma lost it. Oklahoma was my second-ranked team with the toughest schedule last week, yesterday. Whatever. In the past. You guys get me. And Texas, just for a team that's big in the SEC for the first year, I mean, this is a pretty favorable schedule, and they've got the best roster. So, Garrett, thoughts on that, and 1 to 10, how mad they'll be?
I think you nailed it, honestly. I mean, Texas is always going to schedule a legit schedule, blue blood brands, because that's the matchups they like. I think given the move over to the SEC, you're already going to have the natural bias in the fan base. I think for the most part, a lot of the T-shirt fans, the people who really pay attention will know. But I would put it at about a 6 because people are going to have it in their head. We're going to the SEC. We're playing tougher competition. But if you really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, I think you can make a case that it is easy given the circumstances.
I have a 6 on the rage meter. And look, I put Matthew McConaughey there. You can't be mad at that. Look at that guy. He's so cool. Number 4, Oklahoma State. I already hear Wet Blanket on the chat room enraged. But look, having an easy schedule is not necessarily a bad thing, and sometimes it's just how things come out, especially in this first year of mega conferences that we have now. Look, their schedule is South Dakota State, Arkansas, Tulsa, Utah, Kansas State, West Virginia, BYU, Baylor, Arizona State, TCU, Texas Tech, and Colorado. Not a lot of preseason ranked teams on that schedule, which preseason rankings mean very little, as we know. But when it comes down to who are the legacy teams that they're going to be playing and toughing it out against, and look, Bedlam's over, so Oklahoma's off the list, as we know. A game that they won, the last Bedlam, which I think is awesome for Oklahoma State. But look, that's a schedule that could easily be 9-3 or 10-2 if it goes right. Now, I don't think that's going to happen personally. That's my belief. I'm happy to be proven wrong by the Pokes on that one. But that's a pretty good schedule for the Cowboys in year 1 in the 16-team Big 12.
I think I would put that one at about a 3. I mean, you really can't argue with it. Having Texas and Oklahoma leave the conference, it's going to make everybody's schedule easier in theory. You were able to get the dub last year. I don't necessarily think Pokes fans are going to be mad at people calling their schedule easy. They seem like they kind of know their place in the Big 12. They're always going to be in the mix. How they get there, I don't think is really going to be that much of a concern to that fan base. I could be totally wrong. Wet Blanket probably will be pissed.
I don't know. They're the ones who are usually the maddest at me when I even criticize them slightly, so that's why I thought it might be higher. But look, Oklahoma State, if you guys don't go 8-4, 9-3, 10-2 with this schedule, then don't be mad at me.
Exactly.
Be mad at your team for that one. Number 3, Texas Tech. Look at that guy. He doesn't care what the record is. He's got 17 different kinds of alcohol in him. He's probably had 6 or 7 Jell-O shots. He'd probably do grain alcohol without a mixer right now. He's just having a good time. But Texas Tech's schedule, and again, I think Texas Tech is going to be a much improved team and should contend at least late in the year for a Big 12 title. I think that should happen. They should be in the running. But here's the schedule. It's Abilene Christian, Wazoo, North Texas, Arizona State, Cincinnati to start off. Like, that's a really good opportunity to have a really good record right off the bat. At Arizona, Baylor at home, at TCU, at Iowa State, Colorado, Oklahoma State, and West Virginia. Now, the last 2 games are probably the 2 toughest back-to-back that they have in the entire schedule. But Tech has a nice opportunity here to go on a run and maybe be like, they could be like 7-1 through 8 games if it all goes like exactly to plan. I guess 8-0 would be exactly the plan, but they could be 6-2, 7-1, 8-0 after those first 8 games. They really could if the talent is as good as Joey McGuire believes it to be, which he told us on the show just under a month ago.
Yeah, I kind of drank the Kool-Aid with Texas Tech last year, and I had them in the Big 12 championship, and it bit me. I'm going to be a little more patient with them this year. I like what the projection of Baron Morton. Obviously, they got to keep a quarterback healthy. That's been a struggle. You're going through there. You're talking about having to go to Ames and stuff. They struggled on the road last year, so I'm a little nervous. I need to see what they can do and build some consistency on the road this year.
Better on the road in year 2 under Joey McGuire than they were on year 1. So getting better in that space. So I think, but that's a very, very valid point. But I do think this is a schedule they have that could have them running to the top of the conference. Yeah. It's a favorable schedule. Maybe I shouldn't have said easiest. Maybe most favorable is the better title. But, you live, you learn. Que sera, sera. Number 2, the Ohio State Buckeyes. This schedule, look, there's some tough teams on it. I'm not saying that the tough teams I'm going to say aren't tough. But Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State, new coach, Iowa, no offense, Oregon, first really genuinely tough premier mega Big Ten matchup there. An improved Nebraska team for sure, but let's be honest, I don't think anybody expects that to go the wrong way for Ohio State. Penn State, a team that they've pretty much owned and has a whole lot more to prove than Ohio State does. Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana, and Michigan. I said on the triple option earlier today, I think this is the year that Ryan Day washes that stain off of him of being winless versus Michigan. I think Ohio State has no excuse, but the schedule certainly doesn't stand in their way. I would put Ohio State and Texas in the same region where they have some tough things that are going to be more difficult than a lot, but as the premier teams go up at the top, they've got pretty favorable schedules.
No, they really do. I think I don't know if Ohio State fans would get I don't know, maybe about a 5 on that. I think you could make a case, but given that schedule, I don't think they should really have any problem. I'm interested. I'm really excited about the game with Oregon. You nailed it with Penn State. They own Penn State. Now that you've gotten Harbaugh out of the way, your roster is better on paper than what Michigan has to work with. This is their year to make some really make up ground for what they've done in the past couple seasons.
And number 1, the Oregon Ducks. This, as you see here,
love that. That's perfect.
It's just a random Oregon student there. You see that? That's your typical Oregon football fan right there. Trent. The Oregon Ducks schedule in 2024. Idaho, Boise State, Oregon State, UCLA, Michigan State, Ohio State, Purdue, Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Washington. I would say they kind of got first year in the Big Ten schedule like Texas got first year in the SEC schedule, for sure. And look, Oregon's going to be one of the best teams in the country. They can roll through these guys 12-0 and get in the playoff and and play Ohio State, which would be for the second time, and Ohio State could be 11-1, and they could play for a second time like they did last year with Washington. That could all come out, and we'll see who goes to the playoff. I think Oregon and Ohio State are definite playoff teams, so it's not indicative of how good they are and their potential to win the national championship. This is just like, if you want the smoothest landing. Mm-hmm. This is a pretty smooth landing on paper to start out. Now, things can always change, but I do think Oregon has huge potential to get on a real roll to start their Big Ten tenure.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me to think that Oregon's first year in the Big Ten, the schedule is significantly favorable than their final year. That murderer's row last year in the Pac-12, given the quarterbacks that they had to play, I don't think anybody really saw that coming. Oregon this year, I think if this is probably the best opportunity with the nucleus they've had to put themselves in position to compete for a national championship and finally get the dub. I got to see it to believe it first, though.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to do it for us, everybody. Thanks for watching 365 Sports Today. Please keep Smokey in your thoughts tomorrow as he is undergoing surgery. We are off for the next couple of days while we do spring cleaning. And We're going to come back strong on Monday, hopefully with some new gadgets production-wise that we can roll out and you can enjoy on the show. But thank you for watching. If you're locally here in Waco, don't forget 365 Sports tonight on the CW at 10:30. And please, if you have not already, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. It is the lifeblood of everybody who's doing this kind of work on YouTube and on social media. So please do that. Like and subscribe to everybody that you do actually like. It means the world to us that when you do, and it means the world to us when you watch. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you on Monday.